My man, we are live. It is Thursday night reality check. And I've got a great guest tonight, one of my regulars, but tonight, Michael Foster is the main guest. Michael Foster, how you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here. Good to
Yeah.
catch up with you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Got a lot of questions for you as usual, but what I want to do real quick is for people that don't know you, you are a husband, a father, a pastor, and a businessman. So let's kind of go back a little in your, we'll say in your upbringing. So I know there's one thing is that you were, if I'm correct, you were raised Jewish. Is that correct? Or you?
So I have a really kind of diverse background. I was raised by my mother and father, but I also lived with my grandmother who immigrated here after World War II. And she was ethnically Jewish and kind of mixed on what she celebrated. Sometimes she'd go to a Lutheran church. Sometimes she would talk to me about that stuff. So I lived with her for a while. So I had that influence on my life. And then just the influence from my family. So none of us were serious Christians at all. Neither my grandmother, maybe towards the very end of her life, she may have been. But my mom and dad certainly weren't when I was a kid growing up. I didn't become a Christian till I was 17 years old. So I grew up really an agnostic or an atheist my entire life. So
What's the difference between agnostic and atheist?
Well,
difference? I think there is, right?
So agnostic means you can't know, right? Or you don't want to know sometimes. And atheist, there's different versions of atheism. There'd be an agnostic atheist that would say, I don't think you can know that there's a God. So the likelihood is there is no God. I'm going to operate as there is no God. And then there would be an atheist that's like positive there's no God. You don't really run into those guys too much anymore. But the new atheism kind of took that flavor there for a while amongst the sort of Dawkins, Hitchens sort of fan base. But I was more of the agnostic atheist, where I'd just say, what about if God's so good, why is the world so bad? What about the contradictions in Scripture, even though I didn't know them? I'd raise all sorts of questions like that. But I wasn't really actively aggressive against Christianity until I was probably 14 or 15. I just didn't care. But when I was around 14 or 15, my little brother started going to a Pentecostal church. And my mom started to go with him. And then everyone got real preachy all of a sudden. And were leaning on me and criticizing me for the way I was living. And I wasn't living good. From about 14 and a half to 17, I got arrested a number of times and expelled from school and a lot of trouble. But I saw my parents and my siblings talking about Christianity, and then I saw them at home, and there still was a great distance between what they said they believed, and I didn't see any major behavioral change. My father, although, for a time went from being a drunkard to not drinking at all. And I won't lie, that did get my attention a little bit. I didn't convert right away, but I thought, well, that's crazy, because I can remember coming out. I grew up above a bar. I lived with my parents when I was 6, then with my grandma for a couple of years, and then back to my parents, and then I'd stay with my grandma on weekends and summers. And I lived with my parents in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, right across from the Seagram's distillery. When I was a kid, we used to steal barrels of whiskey from there. We'd cut a hole through the fence and roll up on this. It's right on Tanner's Creek, which is a tributary that goes into Ohio. It had a levee. We'd roll it up the levee, and we'd try to drink it. And it was uncured at that point, so it tasted like crap. But I do remember, this is a true story. I might be guilty of murder. I'm not sure. So we rolled it over to the other side of this levee, and there was a homeless guy living over there. And we didn't want to drink it, so we went over and said, hey, we got this barrel of whiskey. Would you like it? So we gave some homeless guy a barrel of whiskey. He probably drank it and died. I don't know. But so I grew up right there above a bar, right across from Seagram's. And my dad would come out of the bar drunk, and so drunk some nights he couldn't get up the stairs because we lived on the apartment. So he'd fall asleep on the sidewalk, and I'd bring a blanket out there and cover him sometimes, you know. And so then when he stopped drinking, it was just like that overnight. And that really stuck out to me. So I know that the church seemed to make an impact on him. All of them ended up kind of falling away from being serious Christians for many, 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 many years. And then I ended up converting about 2 years later, and just by someone preaching the gospel that we all have broken God's law, therefore under God's judgment, and God is right to judge us. A judge that doesn't punish sin, or a cop that doesn't punish criminals, they're corrupt. God is not corrupt, though. God's holy. So if you break his law, it's not only just for him to do it, but it would be unjust and terrible for him not to. So he preached that, said that, but God also is a God that wants to justify and save people without being a hypocrite. So he sent Jesus to be the justifier, to make us right with him by dying on the cross. So Jesus goes to the cross, takes our punishment. It's called a propitiation. He takes the wrath of God for us and puts his righteousness on us. So it's like an exchange. It's like exchanging a debt. He paid he cleared our account and then put positive money in our account and made us right with God. So he preached that in this real simple way. And then my heart was changed, which was kind of funny because I'd been very critical of Christianity at a sort of intellectual level, and knew all sorts of arguments, and was really I love making Christians look stupid. It was fun. But when I converted, it was honest. It was not like someone, well, now you've put all the evidence out there, I believe. Someone preached the gospel, and the Holy Spirit works through his word. I was convicted. I believed. And I changed overnight. I can remember, and I had a lot of weird things happen. I remember going over to my friend's house to watch pornography. Really close with these guys, and this was like the internet wasn't around, so if you wanted to watch porn, you either had to like get your dad's or uncle's VHS videos. And this guy, these friends of mine, they had got in this famous porn and on VHS, and they were going to watch it. We're going to skip school and watch it, and which is awkward. Like, you all kind of sit in different parts of the room and don't talk to each other. But anyway, so I come over, and I just became a Christian, right? Like a week before, and I said, and I knew I shouldn't have done this. But I said, hey, I gotta walk. Hey, guys, let me in. No, Michael, you're a Christian now. And I was like, yeah, but let me in. And they're like, no, you gotta. If you're gonna do this, you gotta be for real. And so I left. I went to school, and I'm still friends with those guys. And they're just kind of like, look, if you're in, you're in. If you're not in, you're not in. But you can't have it both ways. And so even my pagan friends, my non-Christian friends, were just saying, be for real. And I look back on that and I think that's crazy that happened. That's wild that they didn't want me to partake in it. And if there was like, if you're going to be it, you gotta be it all the way. So then I started going to Bible studies with some guys I met, and we became pretty close friends. And I ended up taking over those Bible studies. One friend of mine, he met a girl, and he said, hey, can you teach this youth group and this other Bible study I do for 2 weeks? And I said, yeah. And he just never came back. So that's how I became a youth pastor. I have a prickly side to my personality at times. I can get a little testy and mean. And that used to be way more predominant in my temperament. But years have mellowed me. But back then I could be really mean. I wasn't like, I was personable, but not wanting to hang out with people all the time, not big groups of people. So me becoming a Bible study teacher was kind of humorous. And so these Bible studies, though, the Lord, 30, 50, eventually 100 kids end up coming. Just, it's nuts. Like, we'd have to pray that it wouldn't rain because we'd have to meet outside because there wasn't enough room in houses. Like, there's standing room only. That's
do you think that like kind of helped you kind of bring yourself out, being able to speak in front of people like that?
Yeah, it's all I've ever known. Since I've been 18, I've never known. I've spoken in front of thousands of people, like at a time. And my early ministry, my youth group was bigger than our whole church. And we did these skateboard outreaches, and like 500 kids would come. And by the time I was 20, I probably had done about 50 TV interviews, you know, because our skateboard ministry was such a big deal. There weren't skate parks back then. What we did is we we wanted to hang out with our friends, and we didn't want to like trick them into going to church. I didn't like that bait and switch. So we were skateboarders back then. So what we did, we built a couple ramps and a couple rails. We put them out there, and kids would come and skate, and we'd hang out, and we'd talk to them about life and stuff. We just, you know, that's one reason I like your show. It reminds me of those hangout times, where there's guys just talking, shooting the breathe. It gets really serious for a little bit, then we joke for a while. You know what I mean? It's how guys talk. We move in and out of intense conversation to laughing back. You know what I mean? Change subjects. Mm-hmm. And so we would do that. And then we just kept building more and more ramps. And we built so many ramps that we'd fill up a 24-foot rider like moving truck, like a U-Haul. And then churches started to contact us and ask us to drive up there and set up our skateboard park in their parking lot. So we started driving all around the country, setting this up in parking lots. We'd send a team of skaters ahead with flyers, and they'd just go down to the corner and to the hot skating areas and invite people. And then these churches that are like 50 people, 500 skaters. And this was right before skaters were wusses, right? In the 90s, skaters were like a little like early 90s, especially they were a little rougher. And that was before it got all preppy. Before Airwalks, everyone was wearing them. Before Tony Hawk Pro Skater on PS1 and PS2. So suddenly, like 500 kids would descend on a church, and news would spread. And so the news channels would show up, and the news channels would invite us and to be on. And they would always cut out all the stuff we said about Jesus, because they wanted. So then me and my friends learned to say Jesus every fifth word. Think about Jesus. And here's what I love about Jesus. When we do these skateboard outreaches, Jesus. So we like see if they could edit out us talking about Jesus. And we just, to us, it was a game, and we didn't perceive it as fame or anything like that. Like, we're just hanging out, man. We're just preaching the gospel, hanging out with people, trying to reach them. But a lot of the older people around us, I think, were really jealous of the influence we had. And I can remember once at this one outreach, like, we were using this parking lot over and over again, and all these kids were coming. And the pastor, he was like the biggest. He was like 45 and a youth pastor, big nerdy guy. He's like, I want to preach next time. And so he kind of threw a fit. So we let him preach. And I just remember coming out there saying things like, you kids on your boards, and you're doing these flippity flips, and I don't know what you call them, and you guys are looking for an adventure. And I want to tell you, you know, life is an adventure, and life with Jesus is an adventure. And these are all like goth, wearing black, like skaters. They're dying on the inside. They can't stand this guy. Is everything they hate. And so then no one says anything, and it's like you can hear crickets. And then we made the deal that we'd let him talk, and I'd do a follow up and do an altar call. So I get up there, I stand on the half pipe, and I said, all of you are going to go to hell without God. All you've broken God's law. All you have done terrible things, just like I have. And just walked them straight through scripture. Romans Road, preached it hardcore, wasn't manipulative, but was to the point. And there was a response. And I think I learned early on people are going to respect you not flattering them and pandering them, and just lay your cards down. You may disagree, but there will be a level of respect, especially among those that are healthy individuals and masculine in ways. Guys just want to know, like, guys don't disagree. And this is what women don't understand, is that guys can have intense disagreements, and all it does is draw us closer. Yeah. Generally, it doesn't lead to long divides. And so early on, I had that sort of ministry, and none of it was by design. Like, it just all kind of happened organically. And then later I found out most Christian churches are castrated, effeminate, worthless, gutless, cowardly places. I had no clue. I didn't know. I was a pagan kid, man. And then I just found, like, man, these places, like, everyone's scared, walking on eggshells, that they're going to offend people. And there was like some desert years in our early ministry. After Em and I got married to Emily in 2003. I met her at the Bible study I taught. And in those early years, the church was just so gay. The music was gay. Felt like it was like homoerotic love songs to Jesus, you know? And there's this one song I remember where it's just like, Jesus, I want to feel you inside of me. And the way they were singing it, you know, like, so that could be me projecting onto something perverse, right? But the way it was sung was erotic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Erotic. And I was like, I can't sing this. And I can't do this. And so then I more and more was just really, really turned off by what I saw. And I got a book by a guy named David Morrow, Why Men Hate Going to Church. That seemed to be resonate pretty well. And I wanted to plant a church that would be able to reach men and people that don't normally go to church. People like me. People that grew up, I always tell people I grew up white trash, Guns N' Roses was my hymnal growing up, you know? And you don't see a lot of folks like me in churches. And I don't think very many people just know how rough of a background I come from and how poorly educated my family is, with the exception of my dad. Was authentic alpha. I don't know.
I caught that one. I just caught it after. I don't think you would catch that one. I'll tell you.
You have to tell me some other time.
So let me ask you
Yeah.
a question. So when I consider you would I consider you a theologian because you're studied? So when did you go to school?
So I studied at Northern Kentucky University. I started as a philosophy major and speech communication, and I ended up becoming a triple major in history, English, and entrepreneurship. And so that's where my undergrad is. And then I went to seminary years later at Greenville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, probably one of the most conservative seminaries left in America. So that's where I got basically an MDiv equivalent, Master's of Divinity equivalent. So yeah, I've done more schooling than I wish I had.
Well, it's good because I know we've had streams before where when people talk about scriptures or Greek and Latin, you seem to know all that and know it pretty well. So
My Hebrew is way better than my Greek. I'll tell you that much.
yeah. So for me, like to debunk arguments, the knowledge is important, and you have that knowledge and you've studied that. So I think a lot of people, excuse me, as Christians, they tend to spew a lot of stuff. Like it's kind of like the whole thing, like because I saw it on the internet, it's true, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Unless you've studied it, it'd be like somebody trying to do what I do or do what you do for business. You've spent the time, you've put in the time, put in the work to become a professional. So it's kind of tough when when somebody's trying to tell you something that isn't right. But I've noticed you've come back pretty hard at people. But that's because
every once in a while I do, if they're really. But here's the thing, like, here's what I tell anyone, like, if I hired you to do work in my house, I'm going to defer to you, not to the YouTube guy, right? Like I hired you, and so when it comes to a mechanic or a doctor or whatever, I don't just listen to the experts. I have my own thoughts. I'm going to ask them a lot of questions, but ultimately I'm not as studied as they are. And if they've answered my basic logical questions to satisfactory, I'm going to go with them. Why hire someone? And so it's funny that these guys think that they read a bunch of stuff on Wikipedia and listen to some podcasts and watch some YouTubes and think it's anything compared to the 50 books a year I've been reading since I'm 18 years old. I don't even know how many books I listen to. When I travel on a plane, I'll go through like 4 Audible books in a month on top of my typical 4 or 5 books I'm reading in a month. And now, just because you read a lot doesn't mean you're smart, but the reading works your mind in a different way, right? There's like some books you simply can't listen to. Like to process them, you have to read it, and it's slower. It's chewing your food is what I tell people. People don't chew their food. And so anytime you get knowledge quickly, it leads to arrogance. And it's kind of the Dunning-Kruger syndrome, or where the less you know, the more confident you are a lot of times in an area.
Uh-huh.
The more you know, like you're not really sure how this thing's going to play out. And so you see these guys that think they know everything, and then they'll always get mad at me because I'll ask, so what books have you read? Like, who have you studied? And then of course they haven't. They just read it, 4chan, I don't know, where they get in their information. But if you read one book a month and seriously meditate and digest it, you are going to be 10 times more mature than the guy that just watches tons of YouTube videos. It's gonna work your brain differently. And so so I want the basic respect that I would give to anyone else in their area. I don't think they have to like agree with me, but I'm not an idiot. And if whatever it is you're an expert at, I'm going to listen to you too and give you, so guys that lack, yeah, there you go. What you learn from the big conclusion from WebMD is that you've got cancer. That's what you always learn. You look up all the different symptoms. You're like, I got cancer. I'm going to die. But I think like what I hate about the internet now is the internet's egalitarian by design. It makes everyone equal in a way that we're not really equal. So it allows all these posers to come on here. And that's the problem with the manosphere is if you're a decent copywriter, you can build a huge Twitter account and sell a bunch of, PDF books on Gumroad and whatever. And all you really did is just repurpose other people's content. It's not a reflection of your actual mastery, what you know in your own life, what you can do. And, a lot of these guys couldn't drive a nail straight, right? I mean, yeah. You see some of these guys that are supposedly like pickup artists, and I'm a Christian. I'm not into pickup artistry, but you see these guys, you're like, you're no pickup artist, man, right? You're just really good at tweets, And so I think what we were looking for people to actually know what they're talking about. We should show them some respect.
And just so everybody that watching, there's a clip I have it in the description of the video. It's a phrase Michael Foster had coined last year sometime, but we're calling it merchants of misery and alpha gurus. But there's about a 15-minute clip from a podcast we did, a stream, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Again, check that out. It's called Merchants of Misery and Alpha Gurus. But it's about 15 minutes of gold from Michael Foster. So, but everybody check that out. That was classic. But yeah, so there's a couple of, as normal, I got a big old list of things that, I'd like to talk about. We know you're an author, okay? And your newest book is called It's Good to Be a Man. I do have anybody wants that book, it's in the video description. There's a link in there. But give me a quick rundown of that book and why you wrote it.
Every book I saw on manhood in the church really was about getting married and marriage. And so they define manhood in terms of getting a wife. And I think you should be a man generally, like have that figured out before you get married. And I also saw that there was a lot of books that weren't engaging the situation as it is, weren't realistic about how much misandry, hatred of men there is out there. The questions that are being asked by of Christian men, that's not out there. Also, the church is patriarchal to its core in theory, right? God reveals himself as Father, Son, and Spirit. So Father sends Jesus to us as a king to defeat sin, the devil, and the flesh, and death itself. So Jesus whips people with cords. He's coming back with his leg tatted up and a sword to kill the quick and the dead or to judge them, right? There's nothing like Christianity is very masculine. So if Christianity is so masculine, why is the church so gay? Why is the church so effeminate? And so all these guys, that are reaching out to us, we wanted to be able to answer some of their questions and give them directions. And so the book, my publisher, we had a different subtitle that they didn't want to use. Well, we agreed that it wasn't wise to use. So I was part of that. So the subtitle is called like a manual for biblical masculinity, I think. I always forget the subtitle. But it's less of a manual. We didn't want to give people step-by-steps. What we gave them was a topographical map and a compass. Like, we just wanted to point you in the right direction and get you moving. and wasn't really interested in trying to answer every question systematically, robotically. You know, a lot of the books on masculinity kind of are Aspergian, is what I call them. They lean towards a sort of they say the autistic mind is the male mind on steroids. So it works really hard at scientific categories. It's almost mechanical, and it can be really good in ways, but there's a sort of organic relational element that's missing from it. And really the manosphere leans that way. That's why everything's so categorical.
Well, I coined a phrase on the last stream. I coined a term. I called it spurgatory. So
yeah, that's where a lot of those guys are. That's where a lot of those guys are stuck. There's no doubt about that. But anyhow, so we wanted to reach guys that are dealing with those issues and write a book that was biblical. The first half of the book, the first 7 chapters, is roughly how manhood was lost. The next 7 chapters is roughly how you would regain your manhood. And so we try to write it to young men, but also to the guys that have been beat up by the church, kind of left behind. And I'm working on a sequel right now, and I'm deep in research on everything from marriage license to polygamy to divorcees. I doubt we'll go deep on polygamy. I hate that question. You know, the only people that ever talk to me about polygamy are single guys that can't get a girl. They want to know if they can have 2 girls. Like, why don't you just get one? But anyhow, trying to do a book that actually talks a little more about how to vet and find a good woman, and what some of the basics of intersexual dynamics from a biblical Christian standpoint, because a lot of guys just really don't know how to relate to women. They're very awkward and weird, and so trying to get them going in the right direction. So working on that right now.
Well, I've got I'm going to drop an atomic question here right now. I was going to hold off on this, this is the perfect segue. No, I talked to somebody earlier about this, and I have these observations of, whether it be Christianity or it could be the manosphere or dating or relationships, but this is specifically this is kind of we'll say it meshes the parts of the manosphere with Christianity. And I'm not sure how you're going to take this, but I did a lot of thinking about this, and I think that a lot of guys who turn to Christianity are actually incels. And it's almost an escape. It's not really genuine. I'm hoping I can describe this perfectly. Okay, so let's say they're not meeting any women. It's kind of like a guy who goes into, like, he's in monk mode. Well, he's never been with a woman anyway, so it's kind of like men going their own way kind of thing. Same kind of thing. Well, I went my own way. You went your own way from what? Like, you weren't with women anyways. So I think people use Christianity in the same sense as people use monk mode or the MGTOW movement. So what do you think about that? This is kind of a thought I had, that people use it as an excuse. Not to say, as a Christian, of course, I guess you would say sex before marriage is not correct in Christianity. I mean,
it's fornication.
Yeah. So, would you incel to Christianity? So that's my question.
Here's some of the dynamics that play a role in that. First off, to go to most churches in America requires a guy to be in an environment that he's not naturally comfortable in. Most churches, their decor favor women. It's like walking in a Hobby Lobby women's bathroom half the time, like little frilly flowers everywhere, and just the sort of colors and everything leans a little more towards what women are comfortable with.
Hang on, let me just pause you 1 second. Sure. For anybody that's watching that doesn't know, and because there's some people that I'm sure that you brought over here also, but incel means involuntarily celibate. So if anybody didn't know, that's what incel means.
In other words, they're convinced that no woman will have sex with them for whatever reason, and that's not by their decision, right? It's because of they're not tall enough or whatever. They got all sorts of different reasons. So to just back up a little bit. So to go to a church requires either such a commitment to Christianity that you tolerate this environment, this music, this sort of effeminate preaching in many cases that really masculine men won't put up with for too long. So that's going to filter out some of the more masculine guys to begin with. And you're going to have a lot of guys in church that, because of the environment, they just don't really want to be there. Okay. Then another thing, so those guys, the guys that want to be masculine, go somewhere else. The other thing is that the church has a tendency to beat up on guys. Like you will not hear the church preach to women's sins almost ever. Gossip, lusting towards men, watching Magic Mike, or reading books like Twilight. Twilight's not as bad, but reading books like 50 Shades of Grey, right? 54 million men didn't buy 50 Shades of Grey, women did. And that's sinful. Reading that book is sinful. It's literature. Porn is literature. You don't hear pastors calling that out. You don't talk about how on Father's Day, you hear a lot about deadbeat dads or dad wasn't there. How often do you hear about wine moms and manipulative mothers that shame their kids and mess with their kids' heads? I mean, how many, you and I, like, seeing, I don't agree with Jesse. His last name's escaping me right now. Jesse Black Minister.
Jesse Lee Peterson.
I don't agree with Jesse Lee Peterson's theology at all. Happy to tell it to him, whatever. But when he did that thing on, Jesse's got his finger on one thing. Is that a lot of guys got some pretty deep mother issues. Mm-hmm. And I tend to start with fathers and men, whatever. But I was watching at 21, I guess it was 2 years ago. And after Jesse did this thing on mothers in the Patriarch, it like had really messed with guys' heads. Not because, I think it just revealed that they had all these deep hurt, animosity, like negative emotions towards their mother.
I remember well, actually.
It was pretty intense. And I was like,
really
wow.
Intense. Yeah.
And I kept thinking after that, I was like, well, this is something I haven't given much thought to. And then I did. And Ken Curry and I caught up about it and talked on the phone a little bit. And, the son-mother phenomena and all this. But point being is, where do you hear pastors talking about the sins of women? Well, you don't. But they'll dunk on men left and right. And so there's another kind of saying in the manosphere, AMOG, alpha male of the group. Mm-hmm. And so when a pastor is up there on stage, he controls the mic. And he talks, you guys don't have it, you don't got to get your stuff together. And these women, they're God's daughters, and you wouldn't treat a daughter, yada, 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 right? And they're kind of like being this big old man up blowhard on the stage, the AMOG, the alpha male of the group. And they're getting all the women are like, oh, isn't he great? Yeah, my husband is terrible, right? So now here's the truth. Some of those men are terrible, and some of those men need the riot act. I don't have a problem with saying that. But where are the pastors calling out the women? So if you're at a church and all you ever hear is women are awesome and men are terrible, how long are you going to stay there? How long are you going to be engaged there? Not very long. They're not going to be engaged there for very long. So already the environment, in terms of just the decor, the sound, the aesthetics, turns off men, and then the preaching turns off men. So what type of guy is going to stay in a church like that very long? Well, not the most masculine guy generally. He's going to be willing to move. So then the other thing about the church is that they'll focus, they're Gnostic. So modern Christians are Gnostic. So Gnostics thought spirit was higher than matter, flesh. So they thought so they tend to diminish the value of your body and make everything about your spirit. And then that turns nowadays internal. So these guys, they're able to spit out, warm words and knowledge, but they're not fit, they're not strong, they're not capable, they're not competent. And that incompetent man, he goes anywhere else, guys are going to ride his case, right? And like, they're going to give him a hard time. That's what guys do. If you come in wearing if you get a nice shirt, guys going to say, a nice shirt, do they make it for men? Right? They're just going to tease you. You're going to have to be able, you gain weight, they're going to say, they're going to give you a hard time about it. Guys are going to give each other a hard time about everything. And if and more than anything, or if you like go up, you're supposed to like. I remember I was an electrician, IBEW local 212 here in Cincinnati, and I was going up to install these light fixtures in a hospital. And I remember the guy would always say, "Man, don't make a project of it." He was just always on me, taking too long to put it in because I wasn't very good. I wasn't a good electrician. But guys are just going to like always tease each other and go after each other, and that's because generally we're trying to push people on to be better. Like, we don't really want the guy to fail. We're busting his chops. A weak man that can't take that is going to leave that masculine environment. In a church, that's mean and unchristlike. That's not nice, right? And we call it the 11th commandment, thou shalt be nice, right? And so in a church, a guy can be effeminate and unskilled and never have his chops busted. So you've got this environment, aesthetic environment. You've got this sort of anti-male thing that kind of just runs, even if it's not super intense, it's kind of a low level, always there. And then you've got this environment that welcomes a lack of excellence in your life. So I would say that is an environment that would welcome someone that's like an incel.
Because they're not getting questioned, and they're not getting, I mean,
they're getting praised for their failure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so here's the crazy part. Here's the thing that no one will tell anyone. But Tony, I know you know this, and I know the pickup artist guys know this too. But here's exactly what happens in those churches. Those girls go out with those guys, and they despise them because they're weak. But they don't know why they despise them. And they feel bad because they're nice guys. And everyone tells them, you should like these nice guys, but they're not very masculine. And so these girls, like, they don't really want to be with that guy. And a lot of the more masculine guys in the church get snapped up pretty quick. And so these girls, they delay, getting married. What's up, Griffin? Then these girls now in their late 20s, early 30s, and they haven't found a good guy. And I'll see people in the church say that there are good guys. But look, in the church, some of the guys that are left are pretty effeminate and weak. They really are. And these women are just looking for more alpha dominant sort of male personality. So then these women, they develop their careers, and somewhere at work or at a party after work, they meet this non-Christian dude who's kind but masculine, and they like it, and they're attracted to him, and then they get into a relationship with them, and they get sexual, and one of two things will happen. One, they'll leave the faith. That happens sometimes, but more often than not, what happens is they realize that the guy, he's not going to become a Christian just for them, because he's got a mission, he's got a drive. It's the wrong drive, I think, obviously, but he's going somewhere, and he's not going to let the woman define him. So then the woman goes back to the church, and now she's been with 1, 2, 3, multiple of these guys. And then she beta up with some guy. And so she marries some weak dude. And so you see these beautiful women with this weak guy, and so people say, see, no, beautiful women like nice guys. And then you say, well, I've been in those counseling sessions, and this history comes up, and there's kind of a dead marriage bed for a variety of reasons. And this is a huge troubling dynamic in the church. And it's really hard to talk about it because people won't listen, because they think you're hating women. I actually don't hate these women. I understand how they get to that place. And I kind of don't hate the men either, because the men, they didn't choose to be weak always. Some of them grew up in a really bad environment without a good dad or whatever. You still you're responsible for your actions, and You know, we all got to play the cards we're dealt. But it's easy to look in and say, yeah, you throw me in the same environment, same history, you know, I don't know, I'd end up exactly like them, but I can understand where they're coming from.
Well, maybe I really hit on something then with this, because, you know, when I thought about this, I thought about, you know, an incel, and I don't want to come down on incel guys at all. That's not what I'm here to do. But I think maybe it's more, you know, whether they meet a woman in the church or not. But to me, it's more of like a defense mechanism against their inceldom, we'll call it. In other words, I'm accepted as celibate in this space.
Well, they'll tell you that. So they'll tell you that singleness is a gift. So like one area that I disagree with Roman Catholics on is that to be celibate is in of itself better than to be married. And what the Apostle Paul and Jesus taught is that celibacy is the ability to be sexually chaste and it not be a problem. In other words, you're not having sex and sex isn't a major distraction in your life, right? But with a lot of these incels, they've got massive porn problems. And the way they talk about sex like it's the fountain of youth. Like it is the most magical, wonderful thing ever. And and they're the way they idolize sex is pretty nuts. And so that's not what scripture means by the gift of celibacy. And that's why I tell people, like, if you don't have the gift of celibacy, it's pretty sucky to be single and not chaste, right? Like you want to have that sexual intimacy. That's God-given design and a gift. It's saved for marriage, designed for marriage. But if you don't have that gift, you know, you get really upset. And some of these guys, some of the ones that have made news, which I think are very particular characters, you know, for shooting up women because they deeply resent them. You know what I mean? And so anyway, I think the incel problem is a problem everywhere in our culture. And a bigger one, and they're being demonized. The reason they're being demonized, I think right now, is they shine a light on the broken relational market. They shine a light that something's deeply wrong. And they're going to lionize women. They're going to lionize women and make all their sins good, but they're not going to do that with men. And so anyway.
All right, I'm just looking at the comments. Just want to kind of welcome everybody. A lot of new faces tonight. Appreciate everybody coming in here. Trying to look at your comments and listen to and get them up in here. But yeah, I've got a lot of questions here. Okay, another one. So we went over like incel to Christianity, and I think you answered that perfectly. But that's something that I just kind of picked up on. Like it's a safe way for me to. Geez, how do I say this? It's a safe way for me to cure my inceldom. I think that's kind of what I got out of it. Now I'm going to ask you another question too, that I'm not sure how you're going to answer this one either, but are all religions good? And now the reason I'm asking you this question is because I do think most religions are kind of based, I want to say based on the same thing, but, you know, do not kill, a lot of these things that in Christianity. So are all religions good in any way, shape, or form?
So in an ultimate sense, only one religion is good, Christianity, right? Mm-hmm. True religion. God says, I'm the only God. You can't worship any other gods. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Acts 4:12 says there's no other name under heaven which men can be saved by other than the name of Jesus. So Christianity is an exclusive religion, saying that it's exclusively the only way. Buddha, Muhammad, whatever. All those are false religions. Now, I had a lot of Mormon friends growing up. And Mormons, I know, like if I needed to borrow a cup of sugar, I'm going to be able to borrow a cup of sugar from my Mormon neighbors, and they're going to be clean people, right? Generally speaking, nice people. I had a lot of Mormon neighbors when I lived in Bloomington, Indiana. A lot of Mormons go to Jacob's School of Music at IU, which is like probably second to Juilliard at best. And so I got to know these guys really well, and we straight up just argue, about it in my front yard as our kids played, and so they would my kids would tell them that the Book of Mormon's full of lies. And their parents would bring it up to me, and I was like, well, it is. Still like you, but and so it's kind of interesting to me. I remember once I was at a Barnes and Noble with my wife. I don't know if we were married yet or whatever, but we would go to the Barnes and Nobles for a date and go grab some books and go sit in the coffee shop and read the books and drink coffee together. It's like they had like a Starbucks there early on. And when we go over to the religion section, and I'd always end up striking up a conversation, right? What book you looking at? They'd ask me the same thing. And I remember once I was there and there was a witch there, and she brought that up to me. She was looking at a witchcraft book, and she asked me what I was looking at. And I showed her the book, and I said, what are you looking at? She's like, oh, it's this book on witchcraft. I'm a witch. I said, you're a witch? What do you mean by that? And she said, well, I know what you're thinking, that there's black magic and brooms, but actually I'm a white witch. I'm into white magic, and she's like Wiccan. Wiccan was really popular, kind of late mid 90s to early 2000s. But so anyhow, we talked for a while, and she said, well, I just want you to know that I respect Christianity, the religion of Christianity. And I said, that's surprising. And she said, why? And I said, well, those who practice witchcraft are going to be tossed into hell forever. I think you would not take kindly to that. And and then she said, really? And I said, oh yeah. And I just walked her right through the gospel and explained it to her. And she wasn't, clearly she was taken aback, but it's weird to me how people can't just have conversations. They're so emotional. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be kind in your stream as much as I can, but no, I think all world religions are lies from the devil. Now, can someone getting involved in these religions lead them to get sober, lead them to stop abusing somebody, clean up in ways? Can the structure, the discipline of that lead to some temporary good? Sure, that's obvious. Anyone with eyes can see that. That still doesn't answer the ultimate question, whether it's true and congruent with all reality, mm-hmm. and takes care of our sin problem. So no, I'd just say no, I disagree. That doesn't mean I can't treat people with dignity and a level of honor due to all humans, and just lay it out there, just lay it out and disagree. And I think a lot of Christians live in a bubble, and I just haven't. Huge portion of my family aren't Christians. Huge portion of my family are liberals and Democrats. Several of them are homosexuals of one sort or another. My cousin is really into BDSM, and she and I have had those conversations. And so I think coming from that background and learning that I don't have to burn every relational bridge to the ground, So what I would say is that I have a can of gas and I have a lighter, but it's in the shed, right? I don't carry it with me looking to start crap everywhere I go. And I think some people are just dying to get in a fight because they actually don't have the emotional maturity to have the conversation. So yeah, Jesus is the only way. Repent, believe in him, or else. Can't say I didn't warn you.
I'm going to add on to your, to what you were just saying. But to me, the newborn Christian is the absolute worst. To me,
it's called the cage stage.
They are just brutal. They don't want to talk to anybody. They are right on everything. They have to get on their soapbox. to me, it's brutal. And I grew up in the Christian church. I grew up in hyper Christian churches.
Well, then those guys also suddenly they think they know everything.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like, can I learn from other people? And this is people don't understand when I go down to 21, you know, I do sit and talk to guys that I disagree with, like Jack Donovan, and I have some pretty significant disagreements. Tanner Guzy and I were texting the other day. We have disagreements. You know, he's a Mormon, and we both think each other are going to hell. But there are basic human things that we can talk about. There's social things, cultural things, political things that Tanner and Jack and some of these guys have insights into. And I don't mind learning from them in those areas at all. And I find it easy to have those conversations when everything's just kind of out in the open. I think Christians I'm not a covert person. I try to not use pseudonyms and live out in the open. And I find that it grants me a level of freedom that a lot of people don't get to experience because they're just trying to make everyone happy. And they're trying to not piss people off and hide things. And you can get away with saying a whole lot if you say it in a nice way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, your delivery to a lot of things, but I do find, again, like I said, the newborn Christian can
they
actually
annoy me too, man. They annoy me when they come on and they come on and they're spouting off and
they can actually be, I think, a harm to their family. I think
so. Yeah. I mean, I had to chill out with my mom. Like I remember when I first became a Christian, I was just disgusted by my family's behavior, and it was not great. But you know, my behavior had not been very great until recently either, right? And it's like, whoa. Once you like put some miles on those wheels before you go busting everyone, like, you know, busting their chops like this, you can say, hey, I'm a Christian now, really thankful for how God saved me. Here's something you should consider. Think about this, right? As opposed to like calling down hellfire and brimstone. You know, when these guys like, hey, I know you, because I just think like it took me a long time to preach the gospel to some of my friends, like really sit down, like they knew and I explained it, but I didn't have like a deep heart to heart with my best friend for probably 2 years. I probably waited too long. I did wait too long, but I mean, we got arrested together a couple times, and you know, he knew me, and I wanted it to be genuine, and I didn't want it to I didn't want to discredit the name of Christ to someone I cared so much about. And so I asked him out to Chinese. We had just graduated, I think, high school. And I said, man, I got to apologize. I never just sat you down and told you about how Jesus saved my soul in detail and all this stuff. And I care about you more than anything. And I want to be friends with you forever and ever, man. You know, like I told my wife when I got married, I said, you know, if Quinn calls me and says he's got a body to bury, it's going to be hard to say no. You know, you got those old school friends, like, I mean, you got beat up together, you beat people up together, you got arrested together, like got kicked out of class together, you had each other's back, you know, you didn't date each other's girls, you ran interference, like you put all this time in, and you're so close, and here's a guy I cared about, and I hadn't just sat down and explained the gospel to him simply. So I did. And he said, I really appreciate that. I know. I've listened, I've paid attention, but I thank you for that. And that was that. He's kind of like, he's a theist. So we're getting there over 25 years.
That's why we have, I don't see him in the chat yet, but that's why we have Michael Foster's back.
Yeah.
So, anybody in the watching right now in the chat, we have somebody has a avatar and a account that's Michael Foster's bat. And it's just a baseball bat. So we haven't seen him show up tonight, but I'm sure he'll make an appearance. He always does. So.
My best memories are beating up people. Certain people. There's some good ones there, yeah.
These are great. But again, I want to welcome everybody. A lot of people I've seen before, some I haven't. Welcome. Appreciate all of you. I got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
One thing is, this is a dual question. What is sin and what is a vice? what's the difference between a vice and a sin?
Sure. So a sin is any want or lack of conformity unto God's law. That is the confessional answer. So in other words, a sin is where you break a law of God, and law is built into the very cosmos. So when we hear the word cosmos, we think of just space. We think of Arthur C. Clarke. We think of, what's that annoying black guy? I can't think of his name. Neil Tyson DeGrassi, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
We think of outer space, but the word cosmos means really meant in the old ancient world the structure of all reality. And so just as there's law, like the law of gravity built into what we understand to be the physical world, there is a moral law built into all things. That's where our conscience comes from. Like one of the ways, so conscience is, Latin, con, science, with knowledge. We have a knowledge, and so we naturally feel guilty when we commit or break God's law, even when we don't have a direct knowledge of God's law. And that's why all these cultures, even if they're isolated, have similar morality. Maybe not identical, but nonetheless similar in a lot of ways. And that's because morality is built, God's moral, and the creation bears his fingerprints. So sin is when you break that. So you go against God's design or God's law. And a vice is probably, it's kind of confusing words, but a vice is more of like a sinful habit that holds you back, right? So it's not a sin to drink, but it is a sin to be a drunk. Mm-hmm. So
I'm glad you made that distinction, because that's what I was going to ask you next.
Yeah, like, so being a drunkard would be a vice. Being a glutton would be a vice. Any sort of lack of moderation in an area, consistent. So it's, I think part of being a vice too is it's habitual. It's part of your it's near to a lifestyle or a component of your lifestyle.
Can you sin without knowing you're sinning?
Yeah, actually, you can. There's sins of omission, right, and sins of commission. And so there's sins that we don't even realize that we've committed, and there's sins that we know, and our sins are so many. So here's one way to think about reality. So you've ultimately got two decisions or two possibilities. Either matter itself is eternal, meaning it's uncreated, it's always existed, or someone else, or there's a being that's uncreated that created matter. So you either have a eternal, ultimately divine universe. So you're ascribing almost something like divinity to matter. Or you actually have a divine person that's existed forever that made. You don't really have any other choices. People will say, well, who made God? Like, that's like this big problem. Well, God's unmade. Well, how can something be unmade? Well, if there's no God, what is reality? It would be unmade, right? It'd be uncreated. So like it's a problem for yourself. So you have one of those, and oh crap, Tony, what was the question again? Why I'm going down a.
Oh no, you got me good here because I was listening.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat here. We were talking about sin and vices.
Yeah. Where was I going with this though? I had a point I was building too.
I'm not sure. I was looking at my notes here too.
Yeah, that's all good. I just lost my train of thought for a moment. I'm looking here for someone to okay. I don't know. Let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going.
We'll edit this part out, right?
Anyways.
Edit it out and post.
Between a sin and a vice, I think.
Yeah, I know that part.
Was the basic of it, and I had.
Can you sin without knowing?
Without knowing, yeah.
Sins of commission. Yeah, you can. I don't know where I was going at. So
but we can move on. No big deal. Yeah, I've got a bunch of things. There was a question on the last stream, and I think you missed it, and it was about fathers, and we know you're a father of 7. And this question was brought up. I think it was by Blaxican. He's been a regular here, and as of recent. But his question was, and I had mentioned this before the stream when we were backstage. We know a father is important, okay? But do you think that no father is better than having a weak father?
So I think they're both bad, but they're not the same in how they play out. And they're going to play out differently. So it's interesting.
Let me go quick, because I think say a guy with no father will sometimes look for a different influence, whether it be an uncle or a mentor, where you're looking at your father who you're expecting to guide you, and he doesn't, or he doesn't discipline you properly. So that's kind of the distinction that I'm trying to make with this.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the rabbit hole we went down on the last stream. So that's kind of where I'm going with that question.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I think I think you're right. The guy with the weak father will resent him, and in a way that a guy without a father could potentially just know he doesn't have one and doesn't have a specific person to resent, right? It's more like a gap, an absence that he'll want to fill, where the other guy has a father. He just is a weak dad, which is kind of the case with like Nietzsche. Nietzsche had a weak dad that was claimed to be a Christian, very weak. And I think Paul Vitz in the Psychology of Atheism, it's a great book, writes that Nietzsche's Übermensch, like Superman, was really Nietzsche looking for that idealized father, because he resented his weak dad. And so it's not good either way. I don't know which one I would pick, right? It's kind of almost choose your poison. I don't know. It's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, it's a real hard one. So when he brought it up, I mean, we went around the panel on the last stream. I know that I think you jumped on after that, but I was real curious of to me, I really think that having no father, I don't want to say is better, but I think that you have different options where you can reach out to somebody. I think most young men will gravitate to a strong father figure. Even if you have a weak father, I think a lot of times you'll gravitate to a strong father figure.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of the, me doing this YouTube thing for the past couple of years, I'm shocked at the amount of guys that reach out to me, younger guys, and their comments. Not only that, with emails and different things like that, or even comments like, some of the best comments I have are on my beard trim videos, where they just simply say, "Thanks, Dad," or I've posted one where it said, some of us don't have fathers, so we appreciate, I appreciate you showing me this, Dad. So I get that a lot, which is kind of cool. You know what I mean? So to me, I want to say, this is just me, but I think having a weak father is probably worse than having no father.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see the logic. I don't know. I'd have to think about it more.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I just thought I'd throw it at you. I mean, you're a dad. And what about like your relationship with your father?
So my dad's got an 8th grade education and ex-con, Grand Theft Auto. He spent some time in jail for it, and met my mom while I was on probation at a disco. And excuse me, I'm recovering from a bad cough here. And they got pregnant with me, and then my dad was a pretty decent carpenter, pretty good framer, decent handyman, but just did so much drugs in his 20s, man. So much LSD and stuff, watching Pink Floyd and all that. And then, I think he did PCP when he got arrested, as I recall. I can't remember, angel dust. But so, and smoked marijuana and all that. And then he did a lot of drinking. And so it really hurt his body. His body was pretty weak by his 40s. And he didn't know. I mean, I was reading novels like in third and fourth grade already, and my dad would ask me to spell things for him. But I didn't know any different, so I didn't really like resent him for it at that point. It's funny how like you look up to your dad even when he's not actually a very good man. It's very natural. I mean, and it's funny, like there's these moments in my memory of my dad that just really stand out. I just remember him socking this guy once. Put this, like, it was like a road rage thing. He punched this guy in his face and he just fell down and limp at the car. We drove off and I was like, it's badass. But I was like 6 or 7, but I can remember him taking me out into the backyard with in a thunderstorm with a big tarp, and us just being underneath this tarp in this thunderstorm, this the rain going every which way, and it's just being kind of scary, but being with my dad in a tarp during the thunderstorm, lightning, and everything was super cool. And so and my dad always loved me, but he didn't really teach me how to be a man. Didn't teach me how to shave. Didn't teach me how to throw a football. Didn't teach me how to talk to women. Didn't really teach me to fight. He told me to punch them in their nose and make their eyes water. Remember that. And just didn't really press me. I was kind of a temperamentally mild until late middle school. But then as I get older, I recognized that my dad really just failed to give me a lot of the basic skills I needed. But my grandfather was a cult leader, or at least maybe not a cult leader. He wrote 2 cultic books on the occult from demons that he said talk to him. You can go find it on Amazon. It's Fred Foster. It's like Guardian 45 or Guardian 54, I forget. He wrote that with with his one of his, I think his 6th wife. And he was a bad man, molested some of my cousins, beat my dad as a kid. So my dad gave me what he had. He didn't have a lot to give me, but he gave me what he had. And I think I appreciate that. And my dad says, hey, my dad apologized. And I said, I forgave you years ago, Dad. Yeah, you messed up. I'm going to mess up in my own ways. And we can't like live our life through regret. I forgive you. I love you. I'm thankful for what you gave me. I'm going to take it and I'm going to build more on it. I think about like Trump. Maybe this is not a great example, but I think about how his dad was a millionaire. And people will say, well, Trump's dad was a millionaire. Yeah, but jumping from a millionaire to a billionaire, it's a big deal, right? And I like that he took what his dad gave him and he built on it. So I think if you have a dad that gives you himself to the best of his ability, even if he's not perfect, at least he's trying to set you up, and that you respect that as you become a man and realize how hard it is to meet your duties, to fulfill your obligations, to be the leader the situation requires. It's easy to fail.
I would say this is just my thoughts on fathers nowadays, and just my visions that I see with in life and dealing with people, is that I think too many men are I get that they're doing their work, doing their job, but they're relying on the woman to basically run the family and discipline the kids. It has to do with, to me, keeping up with the Joneses. You have to make enough money to have everybody, just so everybody can have what they need, or what they want, or what they don't need, we'll say. So I think it's lack of fathers that are actually present anymore is what I see.
Absolutely. And here's the crazy thing too, is that because the church hates on men so much and is so soft on women, part of the negatives of that is that it is hard to correct men, because then they'll say, oh, you're just some blue pill, purple pill, whatever their pill is this week, right? Oh, you're just a purple pill guy that you're just like them, you're just taking women's sides, and you hate men. And I'm like, no, goodness gracious, like what other pastor is out here saying the things I say? Like, I'm sure there's a few, but not many. No, like, our failures matter. men are so powerful that when we fail, our failures are even bigger. That's how powerful we are. And that's why I focus on, pardon me, that's why I focus on men. Because I think if I can help the men and get them moving in the right direction and get them to take responsibility for themselves, but also support them and help them get the skills, then I think I can actually help the women. I think in helping the men, I'm helping the women. And helping the men, I'm helping the children. I'm going to, that's my big strategy, is build up men. Not that I don't minister to women and stuff, I do. But if I'm going to put an emphasis somewhere, it's going to be on the men.
Yeah, that comment right here, I don't want to say my mom hates my dad for it. My dad will be 86 this month. My mom is 81. But yeah, my dad kicked our asses in a big way. In a big way, and still does. I mean, he still verbally kicks my ass almost every time I see him. So, but I think what's happening now is I think somewhat the roles are reversing with my father.
Put up this other comment up here. I just want to.
Which one?
JP Hives.
The millionaire one?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just point something out here. Like, I don't disagree, but this is something that's starting to get on my nerves a little bit on the internet. It's associative thinking. So it's where you connect ideas that are associated, but not linearly. There's not a linear thought to it. And all I would say here, JP, is that not that I disagree, but my point wasn't. It was just simply that he took what his dad gave him and he built on it. So it's just a very simple analogy that I like that. And it's not a comment on millionaires or billionaires, but it's a metaphor, right? And I think these sort of survivorship bias, I always see this thrown away. I just think let's work on our linear thinking here. I don't mean that as an attack, but I've seen it a whole lot. Like I did this thing on Gab today where I used Dave Ramsey, the money guy, as an example. And I put an asterisk by his name and I put down, like, this is not about Dave Ramsey. I'm using him as an example. So let's not argue about his financial strategy. I don't agree with all of it, but there was one part of it I did. And then I just saw, like, man, it was like Andrew Torba shared it. So there's like 100 people arguing about Dave Ramsey. It's like, what's going on with the way we think, guys? That's all. Just thank you.
Thanks, JP, for your comment.
For bearing with me, man. That's all.
Yeah. Thanks, JP. Appreciate it. Let me see if I got any more good questions here. Some I might not ask. I don't know. One thing I did want to ask you about was your card counting days. A lot of people don't know that about you, but you were a professional card counter in casinos. True. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's super interesting.
So my friend Ford and I tried to start a business together. It didn't work out. I said, "Do you ever have any other ideas? Tell me." I go to work for a law firm, and then he calls me up and tells me that he became a card counter, and I had only just recently learned what that was because I had heard an interview with the MIT players on Jim Rome, and they had just written a book called. They wrote 2 books. Burning Down the House was one. I can't remember what the other one was. Anyway, so I thought it was interesting, and I went and read, and I read the books, and then Ford comes and tells me he's a card counter, and I'm like, okay, gotcha. But let me go on the card counter thing. But so he comes back to me and tells me he's a card counter. I try to talk him out of it, and then I do a bunch of research on it. And then I wanted a way for Emily to stay home. She was a nurse at the time, and me have enough time to plant a church and make more money. And I was thinking about that, and here came this opportunity to go count cards for a living. And when I realized it wasn't illegal, it breaks no laws. It's not even against house rules. They can kick anyone out they want, but it's part of the attraction of blackjack is that it's winnable, it's beatable theoretically if you actually play right. If you're decent at math. So then I did all that research, and then I joined the card counting team. I flew out to Seattle. Ben Crawford trained me, and Ben's pretty famous card counter, and then they sent me home with $40,000 in my pocket, and I got home, and then I went to Argosy Casino in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and I won $12,000. And I came home and I got paid. There's AV and EV. So EV is expected value. So blackjack's based off. Basically, I used a method called high-low card counting. So in a deck of cards, you have 52 cards. You can divide them into 3 sets of cards. So you have tens, faces, and aces. Those are your big cards. There's 20 of those. You ascribe to them a variable of -1, which in card counting you call it D1 because the brain can't process negative easily. So you call it a D1. So you have -20 in those large cards. Then you've got 9, 8, and 7. Those are your middle cards. There's 12 of those. And you give them a variable of 0. And then you have small cards, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. There's 20 of those. You give them a variable of +1. So a -20 plus 0 plus 20 equals 0. So high-low method tracks the ratio of large cards to small cards. The more large cards left to play in a deck or a shoe, the more positive your count is, because that means lots of small cards will come out. So as they come out, you add them up in your head, and you have what's called a running count. And the more tens are in there, the likelihood that you're going to get more blackjacks, you're going to have stronger hands. And since the dealer has to hit all the way up to 16, a higher chance the dealer is going to bust, because you can stand on whatever you want. So card count, and then there's what's called a true count, where you take the decks left to be played and divide the running count. So it starts to get more complicated there, and you have betting schemes. But I got into that and became a notorious card counter and made. I've lost and won $100,000 in a night, and got to know celebrities and hung out with them and hung out in penthouses. I would fly out to Vegas, AC, Tunica, go down to Biloxi. I went down to Biloxi right after Katrina, about 2 years after Katrina. We called it Biloxi because it had been hit by Katrina. And I remember they had opened up Isle of Capri, and we called it Pile of Debris. But so I went, and then I ended up meeting some of the MIT players and becoming acquainted with them. Became friends with the head of security for Station Casino. Ooh, I don't know if I should have said that. Anyway, it became friends with a lot of people, and it was a really exciting time in my life, but it was also dreadfully lonely, to be honest. I'd go to Vegas. I was married. I'm not going to cheat on my wife. I'm not, I'd go out with my single friends on occasion to a club, and what am I going to do? They're out there like meeting with girls. I got Emily's at home pregnant with my son Hudson, or my second son Athanasius. So I'd go back and I'd just sit in my gigantic suite, looking over Vegas or wherever I was, and eat a sandwich and watch Survivor Man. That was weird. It's like you're out there.
Wasn't the movie Holy Rollers that's
Yep.
depiction on your
It's a documentary. I'm in it. You can see a younger me in there, and we actually were briefly pursued. The team was by the guys that made Jersey Shores, and they offered they started talks very early on to offer us to go back out and play and then film us. And we all were so over it. We're like, no. So it was pretty funny.
What about the movie 21? That's the one with Spacey, I believe.
Yeah, I was there when they were filming that. They filmed that at Red Rock Casino, and it was pretty hilarious. I was hanging out with Kevin Spacey's driver and card counting at either Planet Hollywood or Aladdin, which I don't think either exist anymore. I think it was Aladdin. So it was it was Spacey's personal driver while they're out there, and we're just talking about the movie. He doesn't know. This guy didn't know it was a card counter. It was like a really strange turn of events. Put us at the same table, and I asked. He wanted to know what I did, and I I gave him some like generic. I said I work in math or something. I work with numbers. It was something really generic, and he said he's a driver for a movie being made out here. I was like, oh, that's cool, man. What movie? I was like, is it 21? He's like, how'd you know that? Because, you know, we all in the card counting community, it's pretty small. We're talking about the movie. And so, yeah, I hung out with Kevin Spacey's driver that night, and I was card counting in front of him the whole time, and he didn't know, which I thought was just fantastic. But yeah, that movie, they act like it takes genius. In the early, there's actually some really crazy stuff that went down with the early MIT teams. There was 2 of them, the reptiles and the lizards. And some of the early teams use a method called shuffle tracking. Shuffle tracking is amazing. Basically, through and now when they shuffle the decks, they cut it too many times, but they didn't used to cut the deck so much where they would so there's a pattern. If you've ever been to a casino where they break out the decks and they move it around a certain way, right? There's this pattern they're taught. Now the pattern is really complicated and it shuffles it so much you can't track cards. But in card counting, you have to be able to identify cards up to 2 cards. So I can look at a deck and call it. If I say it's 50, it's 49 or it's 51 or it's 50. I'm not going to be off more than a card. I can see it with my eyes. And these guys, though, were so good. They knew it, and they would track the ace. And they used that as a way to do these massive bets on blackjacks, and it's basically untrackable because you can't see the strategy. It was wild. But for the most part, the MIT team used the method called high-low that I used. So in the movie, there's like all this math running around their head. Dude, I could teach a 7th grader how to card count. I could give them the basics in 1 hour. I know I could.
Well, we're going to do that on the next stream.
I trained 11 of our players that went on the team. We had about 24 people. I helped train 11 of them. A bunch of them failed out and didn't work out. But it's not that complicated. But it does. There are a lot of, there's a lot of mistakes you can make. You make one mistake an hour, you lose all your advantage over the house. And so you gotta, you gotta be very disciplined. It's not the math that's hard. It's the ability to keep cool under pressure and make the right decisions. And so in the movie, it's funny, like it's all these math geniuses. No, it's just math nerds are interested in that. That's how they get in. The best people are the ones that are humble, that can admit when they make a mistake, but also just don't freak out under pressure. And I do really well under pressure. So it was natural for me. It was fun and regrettable. It's a mix. It's life,
Mm-hmm. Did you obviously then had net profits then, right? I'm sure.
I did pretty well.
Okay.
Yep, I did great. I only worked 40 hours a month, and yeah, I'm sure I made over 6 figures back then, something like that.
Wow, that's crazy. I love it though, because I love cards, and who doesn't like gambling? I mean, the reality is all people like gambling. It's a chance of winning something, but what you're doing wasn't really gambling. Would you consider that gambling?
No, I mean, risk of ruin is less than 0.5%. So I call student loans gambling. The way most people deal with their stocks is gambling, especially day trading. In blackjack, if you have a large enough bankroll and you play right, you're going to always win eventually over the long haul. And if you stay within your risk of ruin, variance, is gonna, you're not gonna go. There's a predictable. So it basically expected value is like this. It's a straight line from point A to point B, and so that's the amount, how you get to that amount. But what it looks like is like a mountain peak up and down. And so you have some deep valleys, but the valleys can only mathematically go so deep. And so as long as you stay within risk of ruin, you have enough money, you can survive the whole thing, and it'll eventually get there long term. So I don't know if that makes sense, but AV and EV catch up.
I mean, I'm good at math, so I'm actually trying. I'm actually kind of following you, but like I said, maybe we can do an actual card counting stream one night. That would be awesome. We'll do an hour and a half stream on how to count cards with Michael Foster. I would love that. I think that would be informative. Especially it's legal, correct? I mean,
it is.
Or should we say legal-ish?
It's legal. It's legal.
Anyways, I do have the link pinned So if anybody wants to join, I got Muhammad backstage right now. If anybody wants to join in the stream and talk with Michael Foster, I know he only has about a half hour or so, but if you have any questions for him or any input and you want to join in, we got a little bit of time. So I'm going to put up the shield because we get a lot of trolls here, just so you guys know. I know Michael Foster knows that well. So I'm going to put up a screen here real quick, and I'm going to bring on Muhammad to make sure this is him. Okay. Muhammad, is that you?
Yep, that's me.
Hey,
Okay.
Mohammed, good to hear you.
Good.
Likewise.
Oh,
Michael.
wait, this is the normal Muhammad, right?
Yeah, this is the normal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's our regular Muhammad.
The regular Muhammad, as long as you don't confuse me with another Muhammad.
That's right.
It's a pretty unique name, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, nobody else has that name.
But yeah. The way I explain it to people is, if you walked into a hall with 100 Muslim men and said Muhammad, about 50 of them will turn around and say yes. Generally speaking, especially if you're from India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan.
Okay, I got Pops here too backstage. I'm going to bring Pops on. It's been a while. I'm making sure though. Pops, is that you?
Bangladesh and Pakistan.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, I got Pops here too backstage. I'm going to bring Pops on. It's been a while. I'm making sure though. We got a little echo, Pops.
Me? Yeah, hold on.
I got Pops here too backstage. I'm going to bring Pops on. It's been a while. I'm making sure though. We got a little echo, Pops. Yeah, we got a little echo, Pops. So, all right. Pops, you still there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you good. Yeah, welcome. It's been a while since you've been on here.
So, Mike, I had a question for you. I don't want to get into religion, to be honest with you, because I know I'll bang heads with you. But I just want to know one thing. Do you believe in the Trinity?
Uh-huh.
You do?
I do.
Okay. That's because what you're saying fits in with the Trinity. That's all. That's all I wanted to ask you.
Let me pause real quick. Pause, you guys, real quick. I got Ethan. I'm going to bring Ethan on. Ethan, you're on live. You're not a stream. You're not.
Hello. Hey, I seen your show the other day, Mike. I think you did a really good job there. That one you were standing up in 21.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was.
You did a good job.
Thanks, man.
Ethan, you're not a troll, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
no,
good.
sir.
Ethan Bates sounds like an actor or something. Ethan Bates, the new Batman. Oh.
All right. Well, let's shoot some questions to Michael Foster. Whoever wants to go.
So I have a question. Recently, in our church, a bunch of men, we did a thing called Band of Brothers, where we made some commitments, accountability partners, did some dietary restrictions, worked out, stuff like that, and we read your book during it, which fantastic. Thank you so much for being faithful in writing that book, because it changed a lot of our lives in a pretty big way, actually. So this semester, I'm a college student, which was a mistake. I don't think I should have gone to college, but I'm going to finish it now. But we did an event. I have a club on campus, Christian club on campus. And so I hosted an event called A Man's Purpose, Masculinity and Responsible Patriarchy. Had one of our pastors come in, and needless to say, it was not received very well on campus. I think we learned a lot of good lessons from it, and we actually had a lot of really good conversations with people. How would you recommend? Because I know there's a lot of guys on campus they listen to guys like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, those kind of guys, and I want to reach them, because those guys are charlatans, and I want to reach these men who really, they want to be real men, they want to be masculine, but they're turning to these other guys. How do I reach them on campus? Because they just seem to be apathetic. It's tough to find them, and really, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but
that makes sense. Well, I think one, the reason they like Rogan is that he asks the hard questions, right? And the reason they like Jordan Peterson is, though not a perfect guy at all, Peterson has showed courage under fire at times. These days, I feel like his daughter is really manipulating him, using him, and she is a charlatan. But But I think so. The ability just to get to know these guys and talk to them and have real conversations with them. I mean, that's what I think people like about Joe Rogan, and then just have the courage to stand behind your convictions without being fragile, without getting offended real easily, and allowing people to disagree with you and just roll with it. And like I was just telling someone the other day, I forget where this came up, but someone told me that they thought my sermon from 2 weeks ago was the worst sermon I ever preached. And I said, you're probably right. I mean, I didn't feel great about it, but anyhow, I think when people push back, not letting your panties get in a bunch goes a long way, and just kind of rolling with it. So what I would say is just start talking to those guys about things. Go, where are they at? Go where they're at. Get involved with them somehow, and find those sort of third places. First place, home. Second place, work. So as a student, to some degree, your school is your work, your vocation. And then your third place is where folks interact that aren't those two places. It's kind of hard nowadays because it used to be that you get at a coffee shop when I was younger, in my teens, like when I was in college, and people talked. And now that we've got computers and smartphones, people don't do that anymore. But in college, you got these, I was on flag football league. I was on a couple things like that, and got to know a lot of guys. And I was in what's called a semi-contact football league, which is super hilarious. Just a concept, but those are a bunch of non-Christian guys, and we just hang out and talk. And I go to their house and come to my house, and so I think a lot of it's just getting time with these folks and reaching them and getting to know them, and I think focus on being faithful more than the results. Like, in other words, don't get stuck in an expectation of 10 guys, 20 guys, 30 guys, like it's going to explode right away. That's not usually how things work. The analogy I give people a lot of times is I bought my kids rocks for Christmas. And I told them, I bought you rocks for Christmas. And they said, no, you didn't, Dad. I said, no, I bought you rocks for Christmas. And they thought it was this joke, right? But I actually did buy them rocks for Christmas. I bought them geodes. So that was a joke. So they it's hilarious. They come underneath the Christmas tree. There's all these rocks wrapped up, and they open them. They're like, oh my gosh, they're actually rocks. But with the geode, it's got the crystal inside of it, right? And so the way you do it, you take a hammer and a screwdriver, find a fissure in it, and tap, 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 tap. If you hit it too hard, you'll smash it all on the inside. If you tap, 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 like on the 100th tap, it breaks open, and you get this beautiful crystals. So which tap broke open the geode? Was it number 1? Was it number 2? Was it number 33? Was it 50? Or was it the 100th tap? Well, all 100, the cumulative effect of all 100 taps is what did it. And a lot of our outreach is just just over and over, steady and steady, and getting to know people. And I'll wear people down. I like, one of my favorite boxers is Rocky Marciano, because he wasn't the most powerful guy. He wasn't the best boxer. And he got hit a whole lot. But what he had that no one else had is that he had this tenacity. He just kept coming at you. Just kept coming. Just wear you down. He just walk you down and get you good. And I think that's the way I am with people I disagree with, or I'm trying to win over to something. I just kind of stay on them. But not in this weird way. Just I'm just there. I'm just talking. I'm in their life. I'm keeping up with them. And it kind of wears them down in a sense that they realize that I care for them. So I think guys got to know that you care, and you're not trying to sales pitch them in this sort of weird way. So I just say, go where the men are, interact with them as God opens the door, preach the gospel. I think a lot of these guys that do street preaching, I don't have a problem with it. I did street preaching, but very few of them end up producing disciples because they don't listen to people. They don't know where they're at. I remember when I used to do it, I started to realize that people didn't mean the same. We're talking about different gods. We're literally talking past each other. And so then I'd start to look for guys I could sit down and just kind of talk and relate to them and understand Why did they reject Christianity? What are the reasons? You know, Jesus sits down with the woman at the well. He blows right past a lot of the social norms, and he calls her to the carpet. He says, you know, where's your husband? And she says, I don't have a husband. And Jesus says, right, you are, because you've been married 5 times, and the dude you're with right now is not your husband, right? He just calls her out, calls her a fornicator right there. And so it's not like we can't skip and get to some pretty intense things quickly, but there's still a sort of, you know, Jesus, when he met the woman at the well, it was not evangelism in the sense that he went out to preach the gospel. He was trying to he was crossing through Samaria to get somewhere, and he was thirsty. So he stopped at a well, and he ran into some woman, said, give me a drink. She says, what in the world? I'm a Samaritan woman. You're a Jew. Jews don't talk to Samaritan women. And he's like, if you knew who I was, you would ask for the water of life, right? And it starts this whole conversation. It was not a mission trip. It was a part of his life. And when you look at the book of Acts and you see like John and Peter, they're on their way to the temple for worship in Acts chapter 3. And there's this guy that he's trying, you know, most people don't want to meet eyes with because he's lame and he's begging for money. And they're just on their way to the temple. They're just driving to church, right? And they meet eyes with the guy at the intersection, right? They meet eyes. And they know he wants money. And he says, silver and gold, I don't have you. What I have, I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, rise up and walk, right? So then he rises up. Everyone's like, what in the world's going on? They preach the gospel. People will use that as an example of street preaching. But it wasn't not in the way that we street preach. It wasn't like, hey, Friday night from 8 to 10, we're going to go downtown and preach the gospel. It was more like they just create opportunities and like grab a hold of it. And so spending time with those guys and actually getting to know them without compromising, and then just like straight up take a hold of the opportunity. You know, I'll ask people all sorts of awkward, to the point questions, but so I don't know if that's helping, but there's no magic here. There's like no secret. Secret is preach the gospel and spend time with people.
What about living well and leading by example? See what I'm saying, Ethan? In other words, they're going to look at your life and say, okay, how come my life isn't like Ethan's?
Yeah, that's part of it. I think you want your word to match your, you want your words in life to match.
But Ethan, what are you talking about? You don't like Joe Rogan. Like what? I don't like Joe Rogan, okay? I don't like him. But what is it that bothers you that he does? Because he doesn't seem like he gets into religion, which would conflict with you. So what is it you don't like about him?
So I have watched a good amount of Joe Rogan in my day. I don't that way. I've watched a lot of Joe Rogan. This is back when I, you know, yeah, I've watched a lot of Joe Rogan. I'll tell you.
Pick a topic. Which topic you disagree with him or his method?
So I think I'll start with what I like about him is that he embraces a lot of what we think is good about masculinity. He says that guys should learn martial arts, they should shoot, they should hunt, they should do all these masculine things.
Right.
What I don't like about him is that that's great. But outside of Christian context, outside of doing that for the kingdom of God, it's really not useful. And so I say, I mean, that's why Jordan Peterson has some good things to say too. You know, Joe Rogan has some good things to say. A lot of his guests, he's got some interesting interviews and stuff. He has talked about religion. Whenever he's talked about it very disparagingly. But even so, all that stuff is really meaningless outside of Christianity and
disparagingly. What do you mean?
Mostly every movie you watch and every announcer out there is useless. So I mean, it's just not Joe Rogan. That's what I'm trying to say. It's everything out there. Hollywood. I mean, you really show me a movie that's worth watching anymore.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's like almost watching devil worship movies. Half of them now.
Yeah.
So
I think
Ethan, I think. Go on, Michael. Go on.
What I was just trying to say to you is, I don't think Joe Rogan's the problem with your friends. I think they just can't find the Almighty God.
I think they're following him rather than they're following him because the good things that he says about masculinity, but it's outside of Christ. So they're doing some good things.
But it's the wrong frame to it's the wrong way to frame the entire universe and human interactions. Like learning martial arts is not purely masculine. Women also do that. What I'm saying is there's something which is higher than focusing on just masculinity, and that is having a sense of purpose in your life. Now, how do you bring that into your life? For some people, it's so-called masculine activities like learning martial arts. For some people, it's doing mathematics. For other people, it's having a family, raising their own kids, and every person needs to find his own sense of purpose for his or her life.
I think you should lead by example, Ethan, and not worry about other people. Do your thing.
So back to your question.
People will follow you.
And just so you know, Ethan, Muhammad is Muslim. So,
so
just in case it wasn't clear already.
To give you a more practical answer, I mean, I think that's probably what you're after. I would just tell you, do something with guys and invite them to do it with you. Like go canoe, fix a car, go clay pigeon shooting, go do something, and invite guys.
I like pigeons. You want to kill pigeons now? Oh man,
just the clay ones.
The clay pigeons. Oh, all right.
Yeah. But
real pigeon.
Guys will open up. Guys open up as they do things together, and guys are really uneven in how they open up. They don't usually sit in two chairs. So if you put two chairs in a room, girls will turn them. This is the study they did with boys and girls. Two chairs in a room randomly. Girls will put them across from each other, and they'll face to face. Guys will put them beside each other, and they'll face out into the world. And that's pretty insightful to how men are wired. Men are always looking forward to doing a mission together. One reason that homosexuals are despised through all cultures, and they are, and even non-Christian anthropologists will say that, is that they're perceived as women without wombs. And so when it comes like culturally, societally, men are like, what are their purpose? Like if they're effeminate, I should say effeminate homosexuals. So if they're effeminate, they're like, they don't bring the benefits of a woman or the benefits of a man. And so guys want someone that adds to the mission, to the things they're doing. So what I would say is when I want to get to know guys, I'm like, hey man, I'm doing this work in the backyard. You mind helping me out? And then we'll go to the Home Depot together. We'll talk about why Makita is a crap brand, and I've learned my lesson, I think. And we'll
disagree now. I got a lot of Makita tools. I love them.
Well, I'm happy with my drill, but I'm not happy with some other things I've bought.
Okay. See, I wasn't happy with the drills. Makita circular saw, the absolute best made.
Well, my wife likes them, so I'll let her know that you agree. But anyhow, we'll talk about that, and then it'll dip into his marriage or whatever. I feel like guys need something to take the relational and the emotional intensity down, like something in the distance that they can talk about and they can move in and out of it. I think a lot of times where we go wrong with guys, we try to get them to open up the way women do and like setting up a circle. And guys can open up around a circle if they know each other and they've built that sort of relationship, but not normatively what's going to work that way. That's why I always tell people that most men's ministry is women's ministry with bacon, right? It's like the same circular. I remember I was leading I went to this campus crusade thing I got invited to, and they asked the guys there to say, how do they feel? How do they feel about this particular movie? Everything was very emotional. Like, how do you feel? And this guy, and the leader is a woman. She asked, guys, what sort of feelings did this video make you have as you watched it? And these are just like, one's like a black basketball player from that school, and other one's like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was about a pretty masculine guy. They wouldn't talk. And I was like, what's wrong, guys? You don't want to talk about your feelings to strangers? You know? And they laughed because, like, this is awkward. Like, I'm not going to open my heart up with a bunch of strangers, you know? And so you need something to kind of mitigate that tension or mediate that tension. And so I think, like, honestly, just finding something that guys will go do together. That's why sports, that's why friends come from work, because you're actually working on things together, and it just opens up the door to those other conversations, and it's fun and it's productive, and you get to know people at the same time. And That's my deal. I ask people to do things with me, or
Ethan, you could start something like this. I don't know if you have a YouTube channel yourself where you can have discussions, invite guys on and talk openly.
Yeah.
You know, we've had, when you go back in my channel, you'll see some of the biggest battles ever on some of these podcasts where there's 10 guys on. I've had people on the same podcast where I never thought that these two guys would even communicate, let alone battle, and then basically shake hands at the end. I remember the first night Michael Foster and MGTOW Dictionary MD were on the same stream, and it was quite a stream. It really was. But those guys, you know, both of them left as men, basically shook hands, you know, figuratively, we'll call it, but having those conversations that a lot of times you can't have in person. So on a forum like this, you never know, somebody might open up a little bit, you know. But
Ethan, are you aware of the name Robert Frost, great American poet?
Yeah,
sure
yeah, I know.
So there's a poem he's written, A Tuft of Flowers. You should read that poem, and it will give you a deep insight how men work together, whether they are next to each other or whether they are apart. It's really worth reading that poem. It's a beautiful poem, and it gives an insight into men's mindset and how they connect, even if they have never met with each other, let alone when they work side by side.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to start wrapping it up because Michael Foster has to hit the road here in about 5-10 minutes. So Pops or Muhammad, anything, or Ethan again, anything else from Michael Foster? Feel free. You guys got the floor. Don't be shy.
Oh, I think I'll just reiterate that trying to restrict, see, when you describe yourself, oh, I'm going to do masculine things or patriarchal, your potential to this frame of masculinity and patriarchy. Patriarchy and masculinity is part of your entire existence. It's not all of you. I think the bigger thing is the bigger overarching theme and objective is to have a sense of meaning. And when you're working towards achieving that sense of purpose in your life, you will automatically do the things which you categorize as manly or masculine and patriarchal. You will inculcate religion. This will define your moral values, which will define how you conduct yourself in different situations. And that is what masculinity is. That is what is working towards sense of purpose is. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is as far as I'm concerned.
You know, I got a quick question for Muhammad. Do you, as Islam, do you bring people to Islam? I'm curious.
Oh,
you know,
no. I think what I tell people, I'm always, when anybody has a, are you asking me personally or other preachers you're asking about?
Personally, like
no. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. I never try to convince anybody. I try to answer questions not in form of debate, but just as a form of exchanging views. Because to me, all religions come from one source. To me, Michael Foster's Bible is as sacred as is my Quran, as is Torah, as is Bhagavad Gita, and they all sit on the same shelf in my bookcase. So to me, everything, we are all, coming from the same source. There are different perspectives, sure, but that does not mean anybody is lesser than the other. So I don't try to convince anybody, and whether it's atheist or someone else. So yeah, that's pretty much my point of view.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there's like a special ceremony or something. And
oh no, the special ceremony. See, here's the definition of a Muslim according to Quran, and that is what I believe in. Is if you're a believer in existence of God and you believe in angels and you believe in sense of right and wrong, and you believe in a day of judgment, by definition, you're a Muslim. So there is, as far as I'm concerned, that is what Quran says. Anybody, and that's why Quran says multiple times, all the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians and people of other faiths who believe exist in God, in one God, and in angels and the day of judgment and right and wrong and do the righteous deeds, they are Muslims and their reward is with God. So I don't need to define it for anybody. Yeah, traditionalists will say, yeah, there's a ceremony. Sure, you want to give it a token of ceremony. I see nothing wrong with it, but that's actually not required.
I'm going to bring on MD. I want to make sure this is him.
Hey,
MD, is this you?
Yeah, it's me, Tom.
Okay,
What's
just
going on?
checking. You know how it is.
Yeah, man, definitely, bro, definitely.
Well, thanks for coming out. We're going to wrap up shortly, but yeah, any comments or questions for Michael Foster? I'm glad you're here.
I just got on again. I had left for about an hour, and then I said I saw you were still streaming, so I said let me come on and support, man. You know. So,
yeah, a big thing too, guys, is I want you guys to check out Wisdom Radio, and I know Michael Foster needs to go on there sometime. I think MD, you're going to have a stream about Christianity. You're going to have Islam, Hindu with Varun, and I think that would be an amazing panel, having guys from all different walks on there, and just I guess I don't want to say battle it out, but hash it out, talk it out, and just get different ideas out there.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. If I could get Varun and other guys on it, that'd be great. Yeah, he's been a little hesitant lately. He's just
Varun is funny too. I mean, he's crazy. He's worshiping 99 different gods and temples. I mean, it's like...
No, but more disturbing was some other views that if you don't do certain activity, then you can become photosynthetic and you don't need to eat any food. So that was like really weird. So
Mike,
I don't know. Whatever.
Ask another question. I don't like, when I know you know what the Sabbath was, right?
Sure.
So how did the Sabbath become from Saturday? It went to Sunday. How did that happen?
So in creation, God works 6 days, and then sets aside the seventh day as the day of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So work into rest. And then Christ dies on Friday, resurrected on a Sunday. And then from there on out, we see the disciples meeting on the first day of the week. And in Revelation, it seems to be referred to as the Lord's Day. And
but
so
I thought Saturday was the Lord's Day from the Old Testament. When did he change it?
It seems that the pattern of 6 and 1 is moved from the rest being at the end to the rest begin at the beginning. So now we work out of rest. And so that's the pattern you see, that they meet and they refer to it in that way in the New Testament.
Oh, because I just had an understanding that the Catholics made that happen.
Yeah, that's what everyone thinks.
That's
a common thing on the internet. Like the Catholics put the Bible together or whatever. But
they put Sunday,
Yeah, that's what that's not.
And it is called sun, like worship the sun day.
Well, Saturday.
I know
Saturn, right? But
you're right. Saturn too, right? You could go that route with it also. Sure.
Yeah, Thursday.
I just can't believe that it got changed. That's all.
Yeah, there's like a lot of like 7-day Adventist thinking out there that's kind of taken root. That's very popular. I don't agree with it.
But even on Sunday, the people that go to church on Sunday, they still don't respect a Sabbath where they'll work on Sunday.
They will.
They'll create on Sunday where there is no Sabbath no more. So basically, Sabbath got erased.
Well, we erased blue laws, and you used to not be able to do anything on Sunday unless you had to.
Jersey has those blue laws stuff.
And I think that's good. I think you should abstain from all commerce on Sunday and make Sunday an entire day of public and private worship.
Yeah, but nobody does. But it's not taught to do. Like
we teach it, but you're right. It's a minor. it's fallen out of. I always tell people that Sunday's not second Saturday, like it's another family day to go shopping for your kids. And I like my kids. I don't want my kids doing homework on Sunday either.
Right.
Like Sunday night, getting ready for Monday, but it's not a popular teaching for certain.
Yeah. So you want to kind of your opinion is you like to make Sunday like a holy day, like to work, to acknowledge the Almighty God.
So Sunday is a day of celebration. So we try to make the food Saturday, wake up Sunday morning, have the best donuts we can. And then we have a really awesome, gigantic lunch, and then and the best bottle of wine we have. And the whole day is a day of us fellowshipping and celebrating. So I think a lot of people view Sabbatarianism through the lens of what you can't do. We think this is the day to celebrate what the Lord's done for us and to hang out with Christians that we love, both publicly and privately. So we're going to make it a blowout.
But Jesus never said anything about Sunday, did he?
it's kind of an involved argument, but you do see a move towards the emphasis of the first day, even in the Gospels, the first day of the week. But it's not like this is.
But I thought the first day of the week is Saturday anyway. See, I never understood that Sunday was the first day.
Sunday. Wait. Yeah, Sunday's the first day of the week.
Well, JP's not going to let you go here, Michael.
But anyway, I just had to ask you. You know, I'm not going to get too deep into it because you could spend a whole show on it.
Catholics didn't put the Bibles together. Oh my gosh! Like, where do they?
Well, he's saying the Council of Nicaea. He's talking about.
I mean, have you read it? I named a daughter Nicaea. Have you actually read the Council? Have you read it? I've read it. I've read all the ecumenical councils. I was quizzed on them before tons of elders. Right, I had to go to school and study them. Have you actually even read it?
That's you, right?
JP, right?
Guns, that's you.
It's me, Tony. It's me.
I did get the email.
Anyway, I don't know. So,
well, there's your answer, JP.
There you go.
Well, let's just say I disagree. Go to check your primary sources. Actually, go read it.
Well, welcome, Guns.
Uncle Gunny, there he is, the living legend.
No, the legend is the guest tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know he's trying to go, but we ain't gonna let him off the hook that easy. He might have to do a few more minutes.
Pastor Guns, are you serious?
Why not? The Gospel of Guns. Why not?
Your names. So.
What's your belief
here? A woman.
No, it's Anthony. They're all coming late. So, Pastor Guns, you're not John Steele, are you?
No.
No, it's Uncle Guns.
I've heard that one before. No.
You remember Uncle Guns? Come on.
Yeah.
He just he kind of threw you off with the Pastor Guns. We got Grim dropping some knowledge here. Here we go.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. As soon as Pop mentioned
that's why I didn't want to get into it, because believe me, this show will erupt. Because I definitely got a lot to say, but I'm going to respect the fact that it's Michael Foster's show today.
We got one more. Here we go.
Yeah.
Any response?
Yeah, I love the Bible. It's great. That's my response.
Oh. You know, Michael, while I've got you here, I do have another question.
Sure.
This one, so I'm not married. I'm looking to get married. It's really, really difficult, especially in a college town, to find women who aren't feminists. Really, really difficult. And so I don't know if this is like a specific question or not, but like, where do I find good women who are actually, you know, love the Lord, Bible believing,
the church,
who aren't? Yeah.
How old are you, Ethan?
I'm 22.
Okay. Well, it is hard, and so a couple things is that I don't meet very many guys that don't have effeminacy that needs to be stamped out of them, myself included. Right. But anyone that grew up the last couple decades, this stuff's in the water, quite literally at some point. You know, Alex Jones wasn't totally wrong. And you're going to, most women you're going to find are going to have a degree of that sort of feministic influence in their life. I do think the more masculine a guy is, the more feminine a woman will be. And I've seen, you know, what we want to call them here, Chad, kind of alpha Chad like guys, turn a feminist into a pretty normal woman at some level. Now, I don't want to overplay any of this stuff. I'm just saying that the more masculine you are, and masculine, just like be awesome at your job, be disciplined, stay in shape, be a man of your word, pursue status, get things done, take responsibility. Don't pander and suck up to women. Don't apologize when you didn't do anything wrong. You know, just like all these sort of basic things. You work towards that stuff, and other men will respect you. You'll be happier. You work towards building your vocation. Have some short-term goals for your life. Have some big goals for your life too, and work towards those things. And so that's becoming manly, exercising dominion over yourself and over the things around you. Now, as you do that, I would say the way to deal, this is what I tell a Christian guy. I would say, I don't believe in courtship, first off. I don't think it's really taught by scripture, but I think, let's just say it is. At the particular moment we're in, like, society is pretty broken down. So I recommend old school dating. And that means you're going to see a ton of girls, but you don't fornicate with them, right? You're not like feeling them up and all this stuff. And you get to know them, and you see a bunch of them all at once. Spinning plates is what some of them call in the manosphere, but they usually, there's some sexual connotation to that. And that's not what I mean by it. I just mean get to know them. See if there's any chemistry. The first couple of dates, all you should do is have fun. Christian guys like interview girls like it's a job or something. You know, it's stupid, man. Like, the girl wants to have fun. So go have fun. Is there chemistry? Do we connect? Crazy thing is you can actually go have fun and realize this is not a good match. And you can end it early on before it becomes this big drama, life-sucking sort of mess, okay? And don't hide that you're hanging out with other girls. Don't hide at all. Like, let them know you got options.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, don't hide it. Be honest about it, but don't like rub it in their face. Like, yeah, I'm going out with what's her name, and they're like, you're going out with other girls, and you're like, yeah, we're gonna go hang out. You know, you don't have to make it weird. But why? It's not an exclusive relationship, you know. And I think a guy that has options is a guy that women usually want to be with. And I remember when I first started getting girlfriends in middle school, it was crazy. When I got my first girlfriend, then it was like other girls wanted to date me. I was like, what? And then I had a habit of breaking up with girls every wrestling season. I just break up with them. And they say, why are we breaking up? Something did wrong. It's like, I'm married to wrestling, you know, like I'm trying to win state, you know, like I can't date a girl while I'm doing this. And then that would like make girls like you all the more. It was like crazy because it was just kind of like you didn't need them. And that was very attractive to them because that means you're going somewhere. You got something. You're not desperate. They don't have to bear the relational load in that sense. So I think first off, like you spend a lot of that time getting to know people and just having fun. Learn to compliment women without it being weird. You know, I saw this girl, she sold me hamburgers. This is an example I use. She had like the bluest eyes I've ever seen. It's just like stunning. She was black too. So like it was all the more stunning. And I just said, man, you got pretty eyes. And that was that. And I got the hamburger and she blushed and I moved on. That's all there is to it. Like there's nothing, but that girl liked that. And I think guys got to learn how to like be able to talk to a woman and not try to convert on it. You understand? So I'm thinking in sales terms. In other words, you got to be able to praise a woman and just let it rest and move on. And the problem is guys are so desperate when they realize it's not you making a move, that it's just you noticing an objective reality. There's something attractive about them. And that's that. Like, and I think the problem with Christian men is that they're just so desperate. They're just so desperate for validation. Once you get over being desperate and you're so busy building something that you only got time for someone you enjoy and you're not desperate, that it just filters out and is attracting way more women. So then let's say the more you realize these girls aren't working, the plates, you stop spinning plates, but you don't stop them all at once. And then you introduce them to your friends pretty early on. That's the next vetting filter. What do your friends think about them, right? Do your friends, how do they react around your friends? Because it's funny, you move a girl from one environment to another, and you'll get very different behavior. And that's not always bad. That's natural. Like think about how you have different spheres of friends or relationships, but it does show you another side. And so you take your time to kind of see how they interact and all that. And then after that, what I would say, you kind of move them towards family towards the end. Like introduce them to your family somewhere safe. Just know that signals seriousness, right, of some level. And if you're not so sure you're into her, I wouldn't do that. And if you think you're really starting to like her and you want to see, then you can. That's then when you kind of fall more into the more Christian, old school, formalizing the relationship. But early on, I think guys just have fun, learn to dance, right? have opinions, learn to do pottery, have things you like to do, whatever. Bring them to be involved in things. Dudes are so freaking boring. You know, they're just so boring. And my kids, they had prom. My two boys went to homeschool prom. It was like 300 kids. It was nuts. And so then I was like, all right, boys, we got 45 minutes. I'm going to teach you 2 dances right now. I'll teach you how to dance formally with a girl, and I'll teach you the most basic way to dance to kind of pop music, okay? Right. It's like 8 steps. All you got to do on the formal dance, you know, 4 half steps to your left, 4 half steps to the right, lead, all this. And then I said, whatever you do, don't be the guy that can't go out on the dance floor. That dude's effeminate. He thinks about him too much. He's insecure. Be willing to go out there. Don't be a corn dog and weird, but walk up to some girls and just say, hey, you want to dance? And every single girl, if you walk up with confidence, my boys are tall too and strapping, they're all going to dance. My sons, they all danced with like 15 girls. You know, they all just did it. And they just had fun, and there was nothing to it. And this is me training them to go get the woman that they want, right? But first, you just have to learn to be at ease with them and to actually enjoy women. The problem is with guys is that they put women up on a pedestal, and that either leads to this sort of suck-up behavior, or it leads up to hatred. Because once they put them on a pedestal, they find out that women are just sinners like we are, and they end up resenting them that they don't live up. Women do crazy crap, and they do crazy stuff. Seriously. You know, this like evil, wicked stuff, and even quote unquote good Christian girls. I could tell you some nightmare stories, but so I just say, like, get at ease with yourself, have focus, have some big goals. If like, don't invite girls and sit across from them at, say, like, another thing I see Christian guys do, they like go to a coffee shop and then they want to like have these deep spiritual talks. I'm telling you, have the first dates need to be fun. Something fun. You don't have to go over the top or anything like that. Just enjoy. And if that person can't laugh and enjoy and they treat it like a business, like, well, that's a plate that I wouldn't want to spend anymore. I don't got time for that, you know? And so those, I think when you have that general attitude, a lot of things start to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my general perspective on it right now. And as for women, they're half the population. And so they're everywhere. Now there's certain like that they need to be a Christian. Another thing that guys do is they I think this is a problem. Are you a Reformed Christian?
No?
No?
I'm right on the edge.
Okay.
It's something that I definitely I wasn't a year ago. I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and yeah, I'm
here's what I asked.
considering
it. What I would say is like have a degree of flexibility in what you want her to believe. Like, I will disciple my wife. I will teach her. I don't. Guys want a woman to come like this full package deal. Like, well, she agrees with all these particular views. I'm okay with disagreeing with the woman. Like, that's all right. She'll see I'm right in time. And so I think these guys are always trying to get like women that like, oh, she's got to be reformed. She's got to be postmillennial theonomic. She's got to like have this, and this. And I'm like, you're gonna die alone, dude. You're gonna die alone. Why don't you show her the way? Women want to follow. They really do.
That was going to be my question.
They want you to take, you know, they almost want you to take control, but you got to be the man to do it.
Yeah, and not all will do it, but they only follow men they respect. And some are so damaged they won't. I'm not trying to like, but I'm just saying there is a nature. A woman wants a guy to lead. They do. They expect us to do it.
Thank you.
And they can be contradictory. They'll say, well, I want it my way, and then you give it their way, and then they'll call you out for not like leading. And that sucks, but you're a man. So what? That's part of like, you know, that's how, you know what's going on. You know the game. And and then guys say, well, I don't think it should be that way. Well, what do you want me to tell you? It is what it is, man. Yeah, I deal with reality as is, not what I want. And
I'm going to throw something in there too. And, you know, because it definitely, you know, a lot of the guys that I talk with will say the black pill community, which is really accepting the truth. And, you know, one of the things I can say to you, Ethan, Christian, non-Christian, whatever, but, you know, and I know MD's going to agree with this, and that attraction is not a choice. In other words, I think there is a point to where you can't force yourself on somebody. So if the woman is attracted to you, then it'll work. If she's not attracted to you, it won't work. I think that's just be base psychology. I'm sure, MD, you got to agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think for your first date, Eaton, what you do is you take it to a casino and teach her how to card count.
Let me tell you another thing, Ethan. No one's going to tell you, and this one's buried deep in this video. I wonder if the feminists will find this one. But you do want a woman to be turned on by you. You do at a certain point, and so Christian guys like have control over your sexual desires, master them. But these guys, like, a woman should be aroused by you if you're gonna marry her. And like, guys will tell a woman, I've heard guys say this, like, oh, my wife's beautiful, but I married her for her personality. I'm gonna tell you the truth, a woman, that's a dig. A woman's gonna take that as a dig. Like, she wants to know that she makes your blood boil, man.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't marry my wife just for her personality. I like her personality, but she's good looking. She's, you know. So I think you do want a woman to be turned on by you. And so that's hard for people to hear. I mean, aroused is probably a better way, because turned on has a certain connotation to it. I know that the Christians will read as me saying that you're to lead them to sin, but the lust is inordinate sexual desire. It is natural to be turned on or attracted, aroused by someone in a relationship that's moving in a erotic, romantic direction. You want to protect that, and as soon as those things start going that direction, you either need to cut it off or go for it. Because a lot of guys will get in a relationship with a girl, and she's attracted to them, but they don't really like her. And as a Christian, like, that's a recipe for disaster. So you just cut it off, man. And honestly, to be good at this, you got to be willing to break some hearts, and not do it in a nasty way. But I told this one guy, I told him he should dump the girl he was with. He was like, why? I was like, it's not marriage material, and you've been dumped by the last 3 girls. You should just dump this one to dump her. And they said, I was like, you're not going to marry her, just dump her, because everyone's just going to think, all the women are going to think, everyone dumps that guy. I don't want to be with the guy that's always dumped. And I was like, so if you're the one that's dumped this time, like, all this water has been poisoned. None of these girls in this church are going to want to date you. I guarantee it. And so as a Christian, that's that sort of low key dating, where it's no fornication, just like almost like hanging out to get to know them in a public place, having fun. That's how I think you can do that and avoid any sort of like sinful emotional manipulation or whatever. You're just being really honest about what it is. But love is war, man. Love is war. Wooing is warfare. You want a woman, you get her, right? They don't come to you, right? They kind of do, but they come to you as you're doing what a man should be doing. And when you want the woman, you know, I wanted Emily, and I told her so, and I married her. And you got to like be willing to go for it. But I'd say this: you're young. Just know that the young marriage is a myth. This idea that Christians are getting married in their early teens, this is not true historically. The average marrying age for men in the last 500 years averages out between right about 24 to 26. It's highly based on economics. So you can go back a couple centuries where there's a real economic depression, and it spiked all the way up to 29. And women tend to get married between 17 and 21. Probably the closest, the average is right at 19 over the last several hundred years. So women will marry an older guy generally. So I would just say knock out college. Keep an eye open for anyone that you want to go hang out with and get to know, but don't define yourself by your ability to get yourself a wife. If you're a good-looking guy that's got a decent career, that takes care of himself and is focused, the competition is crap, right? You're going to really set yourself apart, especially in the Christian world. There's not very many manly Christian guys. So those are a bunch of random thoughts I have for you.
That's really helpful, particularly about, because I mean, I feel like I've been really trying to set up myself for success. I'm an Army cadet, so I'll be commissioning as an officer in the National Guard when I graduate. I'm going into law enforcement. That's my plan for a career, stuff like that. What's particularly helpful that you mentioned is to have fun on dates and do that kind of stuff, because let me tell you, I tend to be a very serious person. So that's like that's a real challenge for me. That's something I got to work on. It's just like having fun, dancing, doing stuff like that.
And you be you. Like, there's a whole spectrum of fun. Just find the thing that works for you. I'm not saying be someone you're not.
You know, a fact of attraction, though, too, is that you can't. I mean, I believe this, that you can't increase that attraction, but you sure can decrease it. I know. Again, MD would agree with me on that.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
yeah, that's just the truth of it. And some women, if they're not attracted to you, they can't orgasm. And that's the worst thing, to have a relationship where the female never achieves that. That is a lot of the cause for cheating.
MD, I don't think he's looking to have sex with women. The way he's speaking, he's like
religious. We're talking about, you know, he's got to still. We're talking about marriage here too. Now
he's talking about the long-term effects of the relationship.
The long-term effects,
yeah. If you like, so what do you think about, like, Michael, about men, say like Ethan, marrying a woman who isn't a virgin? Like, should he look for that? Or, like, what's the importance of that?
Well, I mean, that's certainly ideal, and that's what I would recommend. I would also, it's more common in certain sectors of Christianity than I think some people in the manosphere realize, because they've seen so many terrible people name Christ, terrible women, and just like have 7, 14, 20, you know what I mean, sexual partners. I think before you get married, what I did in marriage counseling is I have them reveal to each other kind of their sexual past. And they don't always do it with us in the room. But like, you don't have to, it's probably not wise to go through every single detail, but if there's a past of lesbianism or homosexuality, or you have, if you're not a virgin, they should know. And if there's multiple partners in your past, there should be some level of knowledge here. So we had one where that came up, and the guy kind of knew, but he was like not wanting to face it. And she told him. And so he was really upset and having a hard time. And I said, look, you don't have to marry her, but if you can't let it go, and you don't think there's a way to build forward, you should just call this marriage off, you know. But you can't hold it against her if you're going to go forward. You gotta choose a way, man. And I'm going to tell you whatever. So I think God rebuilds from the rubble a lot of times. And there's people that have had some really made some terrible sinful decisions that have been able to recover from them. So I guess what I would say, are they usually honest? No, not always. No, I think they're not always, but we do what we can. If they're, you know, you can usually tell. But I want people to come face to face with that reality. I also think, MD, I think you would agree that there are some the deep damage that has happened from past sexual relationships. You can see it when it's really bad, just in their eyes, the way they move, the way they dress, the way they carry themselves. So you can kind of filter some of that out pretty quick. But then there's other things, like, honestly, if someone's been molested, and that should really be revealed to a potential spouse as well, because that can lead to a dead marriage bed where now sex is associated with a crime and a sin that's been committed to them. And so I want as much of that out there without making it worse. In other words, like, I don't need them to list all the various sexual acts and then maybe not even the exact number per se. The main thing is, it's just people need to know, if you're, let's be honest, if you're in your late 20s now, it's very rare to find people that have not had sex outside of marriage, even if they call themselves Christians in their late 20s. They do exist.
Would you agree, Michael? Like, we had talked about this, it's funny, on Saturday night on Smash TV, about accepting something. Acceptance, in other words, like in a case like that, you would have to accept it. Would you agree that acceptance is a strength, not a weakness?
I think it depends why. If you accept it because like this is the best I can do, and I think that could be a bad place. But if you say I'm willing to come to terms with this as part of your past, and it's been dealt with, and I think we can build this future together because we've talked about these things, and I see the attributes I need in this person, and then I think that could be a good thing. Yeah. I think the word acceptance, it just kind of depends what you mean by it. Like I think we should call a spade, right? You've had sex with other people. And that now when I have sex with you, I might in a weak moment wonder if you're thinking of them. And that's going to impact our sexual life. I think that's hard. And you have to get to, I think, the willingness to deal with this. And so in marriage counseling, premarital counseling, I just really push people to kind of deal. I want them to know who they're marrying and whether, like I had one person, basically the wife wanted the husband to be type A. And I was like, this dude's never going to be type A. So you just need to decide right now. If him being type A is what you need to marry, like, I asked him, I said, are you going to be type A like end of next year, you think? He's like, no. And I was like, well, there you go. Like, this ain't happening. I think it's really about just kind of coming to terms with what people's history and how they changed. What I don't like about some of the rhetoric I see in the red pill manosphere sort of space, it's almost like you can't change. And people definitely do change. Now, that's not me saying that there aren't psychological, relational consequences to those actions. There are. But I've seen some pretty insane marriages saved and individuals totally turn around and not for like a year, right? It's like the guy that loses weight and brags about it and he gains it all back. Like, let's see if he can keep the weight off for 10 years. Okay. Right. I've seen people turn their life around and it's been like 15, 20 years now. You know what I mean? And they're like super happy. It's been very good. And so I just don't know that I would want to make a blanket yes or a blanket no. I think it's ideal. I think you should pursue that. I think fornication affects men and women differently. It's sin equally, but fornication tends to have a more immediately destructive psychological effect on women that it doesn't have on men, where homosexuality has a different psychological destruction on men in a way that it doesn't have on women immediately. I think that we can categorize things as sin, but when you get into the deep research and look at it, the fornication doesn't affect pair bonding in males the same way it does women. That's well known. And that's not me trying to justify anything. I'm just saying that this is why these things matter. We need to think about them carefully. So I've said more than I normally would say on that subject publicly, but
no, that's great. That's great because I'm in the same camp as you are, that it damages women more than it damages men. I think it can damage both for sure.
Yeah, and both are damnable sins. Let me just be clear.
We did discuss this backstage.
Yep. Guys, I have to go. I like all of you. You're great guys, but I've got to go help my wife load our chickens out into our chicken tractor, and then, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll wink at her and see if I can stay awake and not fall asleep. So,
hey, thank you so much, Michael. By the way, if you're ever up in the upstate New York region, I'd love to have you come and visit, maybe speak at our church or something. If you're ever up here, that would be.
We used to have good friends in Rochester and Greece, so not too far from that area. I get up there every once in a while. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Are we friends on Facebook? Is that how you got here?
No, I've followed your podcast and stuff, and I saw on YouTube I got like a notification that you're going to be live, so I was like, I'll hop in there. So I can
hit me up on Facebook or something. I still got a few there. Very cool. Tony, I always appreciate this.
Yep, everybody, just so you guys know, in the description of the video is Michael Foster's Twitter, his Instagram, his Instagram for his church, the link to his book, his YouTube channel, and everything else you want to know about Michael Foster.
My underwear calendar
below in the description of the video, so check it out. So, and check him out on Twitter, because Foster is one of the most savage people on Twitter I've ever seen. So, and but I look forward to his tweets. That's for sure. So, I don't always like him, but but I look forward to them. So everybody check them out. Great having you again.
Yeah,
You're always a regular on the panel here. But appreciate you, and hopefully we'll see you soon. I'll talk to you soon, of course.
All right, get off now.
We backstage? No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, I was just teasing you. Hey, Ethan, I think though one thing, seeing that you're spiritual, I think you definitely need to find a woman though that is spiritual. I think if you find a woman that isn't, you're always gonna have problems with it. It's hard to change and convert somebody to believe in a lot of girls don't even believe in God anymore. So I think you definitely got to look in the right places. I mean, I'm not saying only go to church and look for a girl, but if you're going to like a rave, you're not going to find your dream girl there. You know what I mean? Also, she's doing drugs and popping ecstasy. That's not, that's not a girl that you're looking
someone
for.
who's faithful and loves the Lord and is Christians.
I think before you even date a girl, you should at least know if she is a little spiritual first. And then go have fun with her, and do whatever you want. Go to a carnival or whatever Michael was saying. Just have fun, go bowling or whatever you want to do. But you definitely need to find spiritual women, being the type of guy you are. Now, when I was your age, I could care less because I was a sinner. You're a good example. I mean, how you're actually found God at an early age. I mean, I always believed in Him, but I was like, I'll be forgiven. I'm just going to keep doing this craziness. I hope I will be forgiven one day. But you got to definitely find a girl that's a little spiritual. I guess you're going to have to go to church and find your girl. I don't see any other option for you.
And have fun. I mean, Michael Foster gave some great advice there. Like you said, you might be a little bit. Sounds like you're a little bit stiff from what you said.
Like if you meet a girl that isn't spiritual and you tell her you don't want to sleep with, like she's attracted to you, and you push her off and you don't want to sleep with her, that relationship's never gonna work out because she don't understand. I don't know if you're a virgin or whatever you are, but if you're not going to have sex with a girl because you'll wait until you get married, that doesn't work with most of the women today. So you're going to have to find specific types of girls. They will basically tell all their girlfriends in college, you don't even want to sleep with me. That's how crazy these women are.
Because they're hoes.
Yeah. So, you're looking, I don't know. I mean, are you looking not to have sex with a girl until you get married?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a good, solid woman who loves the Lord and is faithful.
Have you been?
That's what you need. You need to find that. That's hard to find.
Have you been with any women, or you just wait until you're married?
I'm waiting until I'm married.
Yeah, it's hard to find a young woman right now that's spiritual, but you can find them. Based on another good thing. When you meet their family, that's when you really find out a lot about a girl. Like you see with the mother and the father, how they treat each other. Are they spiritual?
Yep.
Are they into God?
Yep.
They raised her. You understand? How a girl's mother treats her husband is how that girl's going to treat you.
Facts, Pop.
Most of the time. So you got to find a spiritual girl. Find 5 of them. It don't matter. But when you go meet their family, that will reveal so much. You wouldn't be able to, pick her brain and find that out. You got to go meet the family.
I mean, in the Christian context too. I mean, I'm not Michael Foster, but I mean, I think that the problem, what I see with Christian couples, is they get together and they're trying to do what you did, but the problem is they date too long. Mm-hmm. They date for like 2 years, 3 years, and that's biologically, that's torture.
Yeah,
I mean, it really
I've seen that happen too. Yeah, it's not a good situation.
Yeah, that's biological torture.
That is. You got to be looking to get married.
Ethan, how old are you?
I'm 22.
Okay,
young man.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, man. I mean,
I got married, and I was 24 when I got married.
Yeah, but you were smashing since you were a teenager, right, Pop?
Oh, I was doing heavy duty damage like there's no other.
It's like,
I was
this is yeah.
I was in the 80s, man. It was like a free world, it was crazy.
And you're in the military already, Ethan?
Yeah, so I'm an ROTC cadet. So I just contracted and got my military ID and everything recently.
What do you want to be, like in the FBI or something?
So when I commission, I'll be commissioning as an officer in the National Guard, and hoping to branch military police. And then my plan is to go into law enforcement.
Like what, a cop? You mean be a cop?
Yeah, that's ideally. I took my state trooper exam a couple weeks ago.
Good.
Getting my results in a couple weeks. So at this point, I'm doing a police academy next semester, and I just want basically any job in law enforcement that I can get.
I was a cop. I was a cop at 20 years old at NYPD.
You'll get it.
20. I wasn't even 21.
Very cool.
If you want, Ethan,
you know, it's a rough life. I'm gonna tell you that.
Yeah.
It's not all peaches and cream. Yeah. I retired. I got out in 10 years though. I got a pension, you know, a vested out, they call it. Because I had a business and I was making so much money, 5 times what a cop was making. So I just left after 10 years. But it's not an easy life, a cop, especially for a married man, a state trooper. I don't know what kind of chart you work. Like I worked all different hours. You know, it's a rough life to be married too. It had an effect on my marriage. You know, law enforcement today is even worse. So it was a lot easier when I was a cop.
You're getting a lot of support here in the chat, Ethan.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you.
You know,
so, but I'm not saying don't become a cop, but just don't rush a marriage.
Also, Ethan, if you look in the chat, I put in the chat. I'll put it in the comments of the video after the show. So after the show, go ahead and look in the comments. But I linked. If you look in the chat, you'll see Primal Studies. Okay. He was an army officer. He was an army. Cool. Yeah, he was an army officer. If you want to go subscribe to his channel, he's got a lot of good insights. Maybe he can help answer some of your questions. He lived that life for, you know, many years, and even MD down below you, he was army himself, and I retired out of the Navy. So I mean,
Gunny, tell him about your checklist. Go ahead, give him to him. Go ahead, Gunny. Come on. Now.
No, I mean what everybody's saying tonight is absolutely true. I mean, you know, I've had my differences with everybody, but we all agree on the same thing. Yeah. And you know, she's got to be attracted to you. What I always say is she's got to be absolutely burning, you know, squirming and yearning to be with you. You got to find that one who is what I call actively campaigning to be with you. You know, like she sees it. She sees your life. She sees the way you carry yourself, not just with your job, but just with everyone. She sees how you interact with your buddies, with your parents, with the maitre d', with the waiter, with the guy that's tearing tickets at the movies. I mean, just everybody. Women watch every single thing that you do. Now, with you going army officer, and especially, you know, military officer and you know, law enforcement, those occupations have you got a higher chance of going to like a really nice church, going to a really good community, and finding a higher quality woman than some of these other weirdos on the streets, you know, out there getting crazy. Because that's an honorable profession. Yes. And higher quality women look for men in those, you know, honorable professions. They value that kind of thing. Policemen, firemen, military.
They love the uniform.
Yeah, they love the uniform. They love that honorable way that, you know, that men carry themselves, you know, doing those kinds of things. But yeah, she's, you know, just to echo what everybody said tonight, she's really got to be into you. You know, it can't be a question. Like, she's got to be looking at you. You know, she's got to be looking at you like you're
You're the president.
Yeah, you'll know. I mean, like Foster said, Foster had a lot of good facts to smack down. He really comes with a lot of good knowledge. You know, I mean, go have fun. That's important. You know, you gotta have. You know, as MD would tell you, you got to have social skills. You got to be able to interact with women because, as again, everyone on the panel here will say it. You know, it's easy to get hypnotized by a woman and get goo goo gaga. You want a woman. You want to find a woman that'll be like that around you. You want a woman, stars in her eyes, just, oh well, whatever you say, Ethan. Saturday night, sure. And she's dropping everything she's doing to be with you on Saturday night, you know? Not well, you know, me and Mary and and Tina were going out, and
Ethan,
but
you need to find a girl that's father's a cop, they're religious,
yeah,
and maybe she's a nurse, because nurses are the best. They're nurturers. See, a nurse's disposition is to nurture. I love nurses. Nurses, if I had to pick a wife, I want a nurse, because she nurtures people. That's her job. So she'll nurture you.
I mean, the hardest thing to me is that, and I think MD might have something to say about this for sure, but ideally you want to be her first choice, not her second choice.
Yeah, that's a bullseye, Tony. That's like a super bullseye.
Yeah.
It's like right in the middle, sharpshooter.
I know it might go against your beliefs, Ethan, but you might want to get a little bit of experience, with women, because they will eat you alive, especially Christian women, that if they've had sex before. A lot of them go to the church after they've been blown out, and now they want God, and then they find some sucker, and you're young, you're new. And this is not to say just go be a whore or something. I mean, I was in the military. I lost my virginity in my teens, and we did a lot of crazy stuff. And I remember a sergeant telling me, "Don't let your dick choose your wife." Now, you're an officer. Women are going to look at you as a target. They're going to look at you as a paycheck. And I would say, don't ever tell them you're a virgin. I mean, see, that's tough, because then, you fall into lying to them. It's different with a man and a woman. A woman, when you marry her and she's young, the ideal would be someone without sexual experiences. If she has sexual experience, and this is where, if Mike was on, we would disagree on this. To marry a girl now, and she's had previous boyfriends, you can't give her no new sexual experience. You see what I'm saying? So what the hell is going to, and forget about if that guy was more hung than you, then it's over. You know what I'm saying? As far as, with that girl, that particular girl, and I've been with a lot of women, and, I've seen this with married women I've been with when I was younger. Your option, and I know, I'm not trying to break your faith or mess with it or whatever. The safest option, if you were to have sex, are with older women that are ready, that don't want to have children or whatever, or something like that. But I know that, again, the fairy tale, especially for a man, doesn't really work that way. I mean, the churches, from what I've noticed, a lot of women, not all, but they go there in like a sort of repentance. These girls have been blown out in college and high school. Now all of a sudden they find God.
I can't take you, MD. You're too
and I'm just being honest with them. I'm giving it to them clear.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean,
they've been blown out. I love the
grown up in the Christian. I went to a Christian high school, and the Christian girls were the absolute craziest.
Yes. All girls schools are the worst.
Yeah, Alex said it best when he used to come on. He was with a Christian girl, banging anal sex constantly because she wanted to save her virginity for the husband, right? Imagine falling into that, and you say, "Oh, well, my wife was a virgin, but she's swallowing loads and taking anal bangs." This is when you become more experienced with women. You look at them the way a man looks at them, and not the way a boy would look at them. I'm not saying that you're a boy. I have never seen any couple married in the military where the woman didn't cheat on the guy. Never, ever, out of my years in the military. They wait for one unit to go to the field, and then they're in the club that night, because there's no way for their husband to get back and find out what's going on. Not to say that this would happen to you. It's just a word of advice to say, look, man, the fairy tales are called fairy tales because they're fairy tales. They're not real life. It could happen, but I would think that you would have to be older and marry a woman that's younger, maybe 27 and she's 19 or something like that. And even then, it's going to be, you got to have experience somehow, You know, I grew up around a lot of women, and you start to see things that women do, you know, and you know, I always recommend for guys that got kids, get a DNA test. We live in the technical age. You have to be out of your goddamn mind not to get a DNA test.
Well, if the kid comes out and looks just like you, though, I mean, like,
it don't matter. You got to get it. All right, let me give you an example.
There's no doubt.
I'll give you an example, Pop. To be honest, there's a woman, a blonde-haired woman, married to a blonde-haired guy, right?
Yeah.
They have 5 children. All children look like the father. And Terrence Popp had actually talked about this article 2 years ago, I remember as well. All 5 of the children, blonde hair and blue eyed, just like the father and mother, right? They go to school and they do a genealogy test. They find out the last child is from the neighbor down the street.
Oh, wow.
But it looks just like the father, the husband. You see what I'm saying?
So the guy she was cheating with probably looked like the father.
No, black-haired guy. You know
really?
what I mean? Yeah. So this is the thing where, and I'm speaking about this in my book, that there's a thing called semen saturation. When a guy is saturating the woman's you know, her eggs, her ovum, right? And they're saying now with research that her child, let's just say he fathers the child, the kid could still have up to 20% similarity of the previous boyfriend that soaked her, you know, while they were through that relationship.
Really?
That father, remember, she has 4 children, you know, just saturating her for those years that she was having the children. So that 5th child, the egg was already saturated with her husband's
the father's DNA,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, because that happens. You're right.
Yeah. So he's, you know, when they say, oh, you know, she's still a good girl, she can change. Just remember, she's saturated. Not to look at her. She's saturated. Yeah, you know, and it is what it is. And this is why virgins were so necessary. In the Bible, I don't think it says virgin. I think it says untouched by man. Because something as simple as kissing and stuff like that transfers male DNA. You know, and I'm just
hey, so listen, I've actually I gotta head out. I think
when you find a girl that you really like and she's spiritual, you'll know.
Yeah.
You won't have to worry as much. You listen to MD, man. It's scary.
It's hard for guys to take this, like Chris.
MD, they're like, you're scaring the poor child.
And I know, but this is the thing. Sometimes you gotta get that reality, you know. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying, there's not many men that are gonna speak to you like a man.
No, I know. I'm just,
you know.
I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, before Michael Foster left, he was basically telling you the exact same thing. We're just telling you it now in a little
harder,
little more hardcore mode. But that's the reality of the world that we're in right now.
I think, though, if you're with a woman, Ethan, for like a year or 2 and you sleep with her, that's not a real bad thing. I mean, you're like kind of engaged to her. You got to, you know, I think you should sleep with 1 or 2 women before you get married.
Yeah, but just be aware. But if that's not his belief system,
that's. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you this right now. That's not something I'm gonna do.
Yeah, we can't say
that's not something I'm gonna do. I think there's a lot of good advice. Again, that's not something I'm gonna do, particularly about the kind of, you know, talking to more women at the same time and stuff like that. I think that's
you got a hard task.
You did the National Guard already, or you have to do it?
No. So I'm an ROTC cadet. We active duty is usually competitive because I want to start a career in law enforcement as early as I can. I'm not competing for active duty, so I'll be commissioning straight into the Guard when I commission. Mm-hmm. Right now in ROTC, I think it's technically like you're technically in the reserves, I think, but
you got to do like 6 months in the National Guard before, you know, you come out and you go back home. You got to do basic and AIT, right? Or no?
No, that's on the enlisted side. It's completely different for officers.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's true. And Chris Polonio, man, I didn't say I had a child. I don't got children, man. You got to listen to what we're saying, you know, before you say sorry someone got cheated on. Because
saturated.
Yeah, you know, no, I mean, women are saturated. I mean, I look at it from a different way, and I understand, Ethan, you know, you're different at 22 from when you were 16, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you'll be different when you're 24 than when you are now at 22. And you might look at things totally differently. And we're not here to shake your faith or anything like that. We're just here to,
I think you should focus on your career, and the woman will come. The right one will find you. And if you're spiritual and you believe in the Almighty God, He will send somebody to you. Don't worry about it.
That's kind of what
I wouldn't worry. I would just go with your career.
I mean, what I kind of think, even at my age, is that, and I think this is a good way for all men to think is don't go out and look. I think, especially with faith, somebody would be added into your life, and that's really the best way to look at it. And I think you'll know that when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Ethan, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to wrap up the stream anyways, and you are welcome to come on any night, anytime. Michael Foster.
Is this stream going to be recorded?
Oh yeah,
it's going to be up afterwards.
Absolutely, it's awesome. It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, it's always here. And just so you know, Foster is usually always a late guest on my panels. So usually, if you look back months, he's on pretty much. I'm going to say 50% of them, and it's usually a little later in the stream, but he always comes on. We have a good cast of regulars, including MD, Guns, Pops, and a whole cast of others that always come on. And we talk about a lot of different things. So check it out. But you are welcome back. But I do want to, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Dave, you know what, dude? It takes a lot of guys are afraid to come on and talk about it. Talk about anything, But I'm glad you could come on. Was that your first time to meet Michael Foster?
Yes. I've read his book. I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, so I saw that I had a chance to talk with him, and I wanted to take it up.
Cool. So yeah, that's what we do here. Is we like people to, you're able to interact with people you might not normally interact with. That's the kind of platform I like to offer. And have discussions maybe that you can't have with your friends or your family or your pastor or people like that. So, but you're going to get a lot of different viewpoints and opinions here versus, and you can take what you can from it, but still live your life and live the truth that you want to live, but there are certain objective truths when it comes to dating and relationships, just like I said at the beginning, which is attraction. Attraction is not a choice. If she's attracted to you, you can move forward. If she's not, you can't. So don't waste your time. So, but I do want to thank everybody in the chat. Everybody, if I didn't recognize you tonight, Peg and Gus and John and a lot of new faces. Everybody come back too and check us out here on Thursday nights. Sometimes I do Saturday nights. If you want to check something out really cool, on Wednesday nights, go to Wisdom Radio. It's a great stream. It's all about wisdom. A lot of great topics MD has. And he does have a show on Saturday nights called Smash TV. It's more of a roast. It's pretty hardcore, but it's a lot of fun. Get into some deep subjects there also. But and definitely check out Pops. Can't fool Pops. Yeah. Pops is streaming 24/7. So
I call a spade a spade. If you want chaos, come on down. Because I don't hold no bars. I tell it the way it is. We talk about all different subjects.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, but I appreciate everybody tonight. I'm going to call it a night. And
thanks for having me,
Tony. Thanks for coming on, Uncle Guns. Always good to see you. MD.
Always a pleasure, Tony.
Always great to have you on. And thank Ethan, you, as the new guest, appreciate you coming on, man, and sharing.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
Awesome. So everybody have a good night, and we'll see you soon.
Right.
Take care, guys.